of racing, and there's so much to look forward to, especially if anything comes from the previous 2 days of racing, and the form is going to be fantastic. Today we start off with the last 16 for the under-19 mixed doubles and the solos, and then later on this afternoon we get in to the last 8, the quarterfinals, where we start to move through the open weight, open age men's and women's solos, and as well as the under-19 doubles for the men, women and mixed. Absolutely loads to look forward to. So if you're joining us for the first time here this weekend, Barletta has been fantastic. Beautiful sunshine, getting up to around 25, 26 degrees every day. And as the wind picks up and as we move through our program of racing, things get really spicy out there on the water. The wave formations get that little bit punchier, and we get to see the expertise that makes these guys amazing coastal and beach sprint athletes as they deal with those changing conditions through the course of each day. The way that our format works means that we're going to see quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals for each of those last 8 categories as we get into the medal finals later on this afternoon. So absolutely loads to look forward to, but let's hear a little bit more about beach sprint racing and the format.
Let's find out how to beach sprint. Here's the start. The first thing that happens is the athlete goes sprinting down the beach on the horn or the dropping of the flag from the start umpire. They race down to their boat. This might be the athlete in their single or the coxswain in the quad or the stroke in the double. It's a 250-meter sprint, slaloming on the right-hand side of the first of 3 buoys, and then on the left-hand side of the second buoy. Then they make their way up to the hairpin bend at the third buoy, 250 meters down the course. Navigation is crucial here. They spin around that third buoy, having almost a handbrake turn, really technically challenging to make sure they maintain their boat speed as best as possible. And then here's the difficult bit, lining themselves up for the fastest straight line back to the beach. Spatial awareness absolutely critical. Navigating the currents is what sets apart the winning athletes from those who can't quite make it. As they come to the beach, they'll be looking over their shoulders, checking for that dismount point that they want to time perfectly. They'll run up the beach, around their flag, and hit the buzzer on the sand to stop the clock.
Gwyn Button is the chair of the Coastal Rowing Commission. Gwyn, we're in beautiful Barletta at the World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. Tell us, for anyone watching, what is beach sprints?
Beach sprints is so dynamic, exciting. It's got the sea, it's got the sand. Sometimes it's got the rain, but most of the time it's got the sun. It's all about sprinting down the beach, hopping into the boat, rowing, slaloming out to a buoy 250 meters out, race, massive big 180 turn, straight back onto the beach, jumping out the boat and sprinting up the sand and hitting that buzzer.
That's the great thing about the sport. It's just so exciting. Lots of challenging things that might go wrong, might go right. There's just so many things that athletes and boat handlers have to think about.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You've got some people who have come from flat water racing and, you know, they're really quick on the water, but sometimes they make mistakes. Sometimes the waves are up, and this afternoon we should probably get some big stuff up this afternoon. You'll see the coastal guys coming to their fore.
Tell us, is there an exciting future ahead for the sport?
Yeah, whatever, the sport is very young. The discipline started over 20 years ago, but the format of beach sprints really new. First time we ran that was 2015. And now there's an opportunity potentially to go into the games. If we go into the Olympics, gloves off, it's going to be amazing. Watch it and see. But if it doesn't, you know, there's a real groundswell of people that just want to be on the beach, show the skills that they have, and party on the sand.
Party they will. Now, beautiful Barletta, Italy, changing conditions we're seeing here at the course, and I think that's all part of it as well. You know, it keeps athletes on their toes, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the absolute agility as the sea conditions change. We've got a little bar just about 20 meters offshore, and as the tide drops, that bar's going to make the waves stand up more. We're expecting bigger winds, so the waves will get really short and sharp, and the boats, the directional stability on the boats is really hard to handle. So for me, if you're watching, make sure you look out between the flat water specialists who come here from the Olympics and World Championships with lots of medals on their shoulders versus the athletes that come from coastal.
Thank you so much, Gwyn. So over to Pete, where we're going to be learning all about the boats and the course.
Hello, we're here in Barletta, Italy for the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. I'm standing here right on the start and finish line of the 500-meter course. 2 buzzers in the sand, and what happens through the course is the starting umpire will press the klaxon, they will set off down the course, and when they come back, they hit this buzzer to get started on the race. But I'm going to take you through some of the technical details that make these boats specifically fine-tuned for beach sprint racing. We're stood here with a coastal rowing quad. It's 10.5 meters long, and it's about 110 kilos without the front of these boats, is the waves as it goes. It also adds slightly to the length of the boat. I said it's 10.5. They're shoes specifically designed for easy entry and exit into the boat, and then these ballast weights are attached to the side of the boat of attack of the whole boat as they coast through the water. Lots of specific things here. You can see it's nearly 1.5 meters wide at its widest point, and that's to create the stability that you need when you're smashing through the waves with essentially a 130 kilo boat with the athlete weights on top. So hugely heavy boat, and that makes it really, really difficult to handle when you've got waves throwing it all around. Now, there are some things that the coxswain, who sits here, can do to try and combat the effects of the waves. They've got a dagger board, a removable dagger board that's really important, because when they put that dagger board in, it helps them to stay straight and combat the effect of the waves. But also they can remove it for when they get to the far end of the course that you'll see in a minute, where there's a hairpin bend. They can pull some of these strings that affect, as we move to the back, the rudder, and allows them to lift or drop the rudder, and then they've got these strings here that they can pull on from their seat to adjust the angle. And you'll notice that there's an open back to the boat here. This means that any water that floods into the boat just washes straight out of the back of the boat and doesn't add to the weight that they've got to carry down the course. So talking about the course, here it is. It's 500 meters long in total, 250 meters out, 250 meters back. The athletes start just where I showed you on the buzzer. They sprint straight down to the boats, where the boats are already in the water, and that means that the coxswain will jump in. They'll race up on the right-hand side of their lane, so there's 2 lanes, race up on the right-hand side of the first buoy, left-hand side of the second buoy, and then they do an anti-clockwise hairpin turn around the furthest turning point and come straight back in. It's a side-by-side race, so when they come crashing into the beach, the bowman has to jump out, sprint up around the flags. You'll see there's 2 flags here on either side for each of the lanes, run up to the finish line, smack that buzzer to stop the timer. So it's an amazing course, 500 meters in total.
And it is beautiful scenes here. Now that you can see the course from the aerial angle, we're just about to get started with the first race of the day. We're underway with the last 16, or the pre-quarterfinal races for the mixed doubles, the open age men's and women's solos, before we get into the finals of this afternoon. So just 3 boat classes to move through the last 16, it's called, the pre-quarterfinal round. Lining up here first, though, we have USA's Malachi Anderson and Britt Wadowicz against Japan's Hashimoto Genki and Matsuda Minami. Just a few moments until the start of this race. Their boats are already in the water. Britt Wadowicz here for the USA, sprinting alongside Matsuda Minami. Here we go then, the first race of the last day of racing here at the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals, Barletta, Italy. Both of these athletes making it down to their boats at the same time. If you joined us yesterday, you'll have heard our commentary around the changing conditions here. It's slightly choppier this morning than it was yesterday morning, and the wind will start to pivot round as the heat of the day warms up the land. We'll expect to see a much more offshore wind coming onshore and affecting the wave conditions. It was very pan flat yesterday morning, but this morning slightly breezier with the wind moving from the land to the sea. But the USA have made the better of this start, coming up towards the second pencil buoy, just over a length up. So they started off at the same time, so slightly better speed coming from Malachi Anderson and Britt Wadowicz. Only one of these boats gets through to the last 8, i.e. the quarter-finals. Britt Wadowicz, she was silver medalist back in 2021 when the beach sprints were in Oeiras, Portugal, racing in the mixed double. We also have Malachi Anderson taking a silver medal last year in the under-19 men's double, but Malachi Anderson yesterday took a silver medal in the men's solo, the under-19 men's solo. So he's already going home with a medal from this event. Look at this. The Americans have gone very, very long around that buoy, so they've added a great deal of distance to the rowing they've got to do. You can see the wave formations coming in at a diagonal angle to the direction of the course. That makes it just that much harder for them, A, to turn around that first buoy because it's pushing them away from it, and also to make sure that they stay straight when the waves are coming in on the diagonal, trying to push them off course. So let's see how they handle the navigation. You can see that the USA boat not quite straight, but they do have quite a large safety margin coming into the last 100 or so meters of the C section. Malachi Anderson, he'll be doing the running up the beach. Student at the University of Miami, studying mechanical engineering, and it looks like they've earned themselves quite a comfortable safety margin here. This being the last 16, i.e. the pre-quarterfinals. They will race again if they get through to the last 8. Those races will be later on this afternoon, where they'll go through the knockout rounds. This is a knockout round too, but they'll go through the fast format knockout rounds, where you have the quarterfinals, immediately followed by the semifinals, immediately followed by the finals, all within the space of about 45 minutes. That's why this is a power endurance event. It's a max effort sprint. No challengers coming into the beach here. The waves not really causing any issues to these experienced coastal athletes. Malachi Anderson then at a light jog. He's let his braid out. Yesterday he had a little bit of a plait through his hair. I think he's just decided that today's going to be a loose hair day, and good for him too. They take the win in this first race of the day with a 2:53 their time. So we'll look forward to seeing them in the next round. Super performance from Hashimoto Genki and Matsuda Minami of Japan, but they will be going home now. They've had a super tournament thus far, because of course we had the time trials for this category. Japan were 16th in that time trial to face against the USA, who were the winners of that time trial. So that's the way that this format works. Time trials plot you into these pre-quarterfinal rounds, first against 16th, and then this next race will be the second place from the time trial against the 15th place from the time trial. So Great Britain was second, Cyprus were 15th, and therefore lining up in this second of the pre-quarterfinal rounds, we've got Jonathan Martini and Isabel Lancaster for Great Britain. Lancaster doing the running in the first leg because she'll be in the stroke seat. And here then for Cyprus, we've got Ioannis Lazarou and Katerina Kontuna. Kontuna doing the running because she's also in the stroke seat. And we'll therefore find out who's progressing on to the next round to face the USA. Here the umpire asking for the boats to be popped into the water. That means that in a moment they'll be called under starters' orders to attention. And then we mentioned this a few times yesterday. The starting format is that the umpire needs to stand just to the side of the start line, because he needs to have an uninterrupted view of the athletes on the start line and the boats in the water. And if he stood in the middle, he'd have to turn around to do that. So he stood at the side and he's got his flag, and the athletes are allowed to go on the drop of the flag. The buzzer is almost irrelevant. They are allowed to go on the drop of the flag. So many athletes do tend to look up to the right to watch the flag, because there can be a momentary delay between the flag and the buzzer. There we go. They go off in unison this time, though. Lancaster slightly quicker in the sprint than Kontuna. So we'll see how they handle the entry into their boats. It's becoming an art form, the way that they manage this, and some comical ways of describing the boat entry process. Some go foot, bum, foot. Some go foot, foot, bum. Some go bum, foot, foot, is the way that many people describe it. And it looks as though whichever process Lancaster used has paid off, because Great Britain start to pull out ahead, a length or so up already, passing the first turning point. So a good start for Great Britain, sort of what you'd expect based on their second place finish in the time trials on earlier in the week. And it'll be hard work now for Cyprus to get into contention for one of these places through. We do need to bear in mind, though, that conditions slightly trickier. It's been different every single day, with the exception of the fact that in the afternoon there is more wind. That's the only consistent thing. There is more wind in the afternoon. However, this morning, the wave formations and their direction is different to that it was yesterday. Yesterday, it was pretty much coming directly onshore, which meant that they were going out directly against the waves. Here, though, we've got a diagonal movement of the waves, that's coming in from the north. Yes, day before yesterday, on the Friday, it was a diagonal movement of the waves coming in from the southeast. So everything's been slightly different in terms of the wave formations and direction. But you can see here, Great Britain just on the crest of that big roller. That's going to give them a little bit of a boost coming back into shore. As long as they can stay clean and straight on it. These doubles have slightly smaller fins on the underside than the boat makers would usually like them to have. And that's because it's very, very shallow approach in the beach. They don't want to be breaking too many fins. But it means that it's that much easier for a wave to push the stern off. Or you could just about see it in the bottom right of the picture there. Great Britain riding the crest of that big roller, and it's giving them a huge boost in towards the shore. But it nearly spun their stern around to the side. Keeping control of that is what makes this such an expert performance from any coastal athletes that manage to navigate those waves cleanly. And it's why it's such a challenge for the flat water rowers to make it out on the coastal scene, because it's so different dealing not only with the waves, the currents, but also the wind direction. These boats, these coastal boats, have a much greater windage, the windage being the side profile of the boat that catches the wind and therefore makes it that much trickier to row straight. Jonathan Martini for Great Britain hitting that buzzer. They do a 2:36. So interesting to see there that 2:36.61, a fair bit quicker than the USA. USA weren't pushed though, so they eased off quite significantly. And I think that means that we're going to be on for some tight racing later on this afternoon, where we can look forward to the last 8 or the quarterfinals onwards for these mixed doubles from 3 o'clock local time here in Barletta, Italy. Cyprus now making landfall. Ioannis Lazarou for Cyprus will be the one making his way up the beach here. Slightly challenging conditions for them. I think they found themselves just on the wrong side of each of the waves that they would have liked to surf down. Been a good race for them thus far, racing in the time trials and then here in this pre-quarterfinal round of the last 16. Great Britain, though, this morning setting the time to beat, 2:36. That is a very rapid time, in fact, compared even to some of the fastest senior racers that we saw of yesterday. So we'll be keeping an eye on that time to see how they progress. And I think one of the favourites in terms of boats of this whole event is coming up next. I won't spoil the surprise by telling you who that is just yet. As we look at this recap here of that excellent performance from Great Britain, Martini and Lancaster just so perfectly executing a race strategy that included using the wave that they were on. Here, though, is the third of the pre-quarterfinals. Ahmed Talbi for Tunisia, here with the 3-time world champion, Hela Belhaj Mohamed. Belhaj Mohamed, an absolute rocket on the sand. She's doing the sprint for Tunisia. They're lined up alongside the Bahamas, Phoenix Robinson and Renee Ingraham. Ingraham in the stroke seat will be running alongside Belhaj Mohamed. This is a great race to be enjoying. Belhaj Mohamed took her third gold medal yesterday in the under-19 women's solo. She won in 2021 in Oeiras, 2022 in Saundersfoot, and then again yesterday here in Barletta. Ahmed Talbi, her partner, taking 4th place yesterday in the under-19 men's solo. There we see Phoenix Robinson getting into the boat. That's how it works. They have to stay feet on the sand until the buzzer goes, and they are then allowed to jump into the boat. Some seat trouble there for the Tunisians. That was worrying because the klaxon went, and I saw the boat handler running down to the boat themselves, and we don't have Ahmed Talbi in his seat yet. This is a disaster for Tunisia. Let's see if they can make up for it. I mean, if anybody's going to make up for it, it's the Tunisians. It's a race ender for them. I can't believe it. They've had to stop rowing, and I think the whistle's blown. Bahama have stopped rowing too. I think a bit of relief for the Tunisian fans here, because that was going to be a race ender for the potential favourites in this boat class. The Tunisians. We're going to have a re-race of this then. So it sounds as though the umpires are calling them back to the start, and we're going to have a do-over, which the Tunisian fans will be pleased to hear about, because I did see the boat handler running down there. Looked like she was holding a seat, but there can't have not been a seat in the boat. So So we're going to have a little bit of a slow-mo of what happened there. Here it is. Yeah, it was a seat she was running down with. The seats weren't in the boat. Unbelievable. Just as Hella is trying to get into the boat, her seat's not on the runner, nor is Ahmed Talbi. So clearly when he tried to jump in, they must have noticed at the last minute that the seats had been taken out. Well, it's a tricky thing that, because the umpires have used the rule that allows, due to technical issues, a race to be called back and restarted. And I guess we'll have this one as a do-over very quickly. Hella will have to do that sprint again, as will Renee Ingram. But at least this time they can make sure that those seats are on the runners properly, because they do fall off. And if they're not put on properly, the last thing you need is exactly what these guys faced, frankly. Your seat not in the right place, and then when you're trying to move through those breaking waves, adjusting it under your bottom whilst trying to take a few strokes. So a few sighs of relief for Tunisia, I think. And then we'll have this. Look at this. She must have noticed moments before the start, the boat handler that is, and quickly gone up to go and fetch them. And I think just a few issues there getting Talbi's seat on. But just the fact that they got 50 meters off the beach and he still hadn't had his seat sorted. Well, it looks as though it's resolved now. They'll be making triple sure of absolutely everything in that boat now, making sure that the foot stretchers are locked in place, the gates on holding their oars in place are absolutely screwed down. And then I think we'll have a little bit of a do-over here for the third race of the under-19 mixed double sculls. Renee Ingram for the Bahamas. She's had a few struggles with her knees not cooperating with her through the course of the season. Both of the Bahamanians learnt to row in Exuma, Bahamas. Phoenix back in 2019, Renee in 2022. Just last year she started rowing. Still at school, a 16-year-old, and Phoenix Robinson, 15 years of age. Some of the youngest competitors we've got competing here, and it's great to see them on the world stage representing the Bahamas. So 1 minute call out. That means that everybody can catch their breath. We'll find out who's going to be progressing on to the next round, the last 8, and get an opportunity to battle it out this afternoon. An intimidating combination from Tunisia, Belhaj Mohamed, the inspiration to many other athletes out there racing. In fact, Britt Wadovich, in the stroke seat of the USA boat we saw race two races ago, considers Hella Belhaj Mohamed a inspiration of hers. So this 3-time world champion in the under-19. First time she took the world championship title, just 16 years of age. We've seen her take medals as well, a bronze in the open age, the senior mixed double.
Attention.
And she is no slouch. Both of them, in fact. Renee Ingram might be beating Belhaj Mohamed to the boat. That is something, because she's considered an absolute sprinter, Hella Belhaj Mohamed. But look at this, no issues with the boat entry this time. And now we've got a technical issue for the Bahamas. Seat off the stretcher. Unbelievable, what's happened now? Is this going to be another re-row? They've got the boat moving this time, but that's a disastrous start for them. You can't help but feel for Renee Ingram after having to do that sprint twice. Now they're down by a good 70-odd meters on Tunisia. And Tunisia is so fast, I think that sadly is going to be an unsurmountable distance to try and close in. 60 meters of difference between the two of them, and upsetting circumstances for the Bahamas. Phoenix Robinson, Renee Ingram moving over to take their second buoy on the correct side there. You can see that the rolling waves moving in much quicker than they did yesterday. Yesterday, some of the wave formations that came in were actually slower than the boats on the way back into shore. So it became a bit of a hurdle, because if they weren't able to overtake the wave, they got bogged down behind it. Here, though, we see Tunisia make that turn. A little bit of a tangle with the buoy, but let's see whether they try to coast in on one of these big rollers. Hugely experienced, these two, Ahmed Talbi, Hella Belhaj Mohammed. Looks like they're just on the wrong side of that rolling wave in front of them. As the course of the afternoon moves on, these rolling waves do get a little bit pointier, as the wind, we expect to change direction to come more onshore. Pushing the sea in creates an effect of making these very flat rolling waves shorter and spikier, which means that the boats just get a little bit caught between them, and takes immense strength to row over like a speed bump and get in front of the next wave. But I think not much is going to change here. Disappointing start, I'm sure, for Robinson and Ingram, particularly as it was the second one. Not quite sure what could have happened to their seat. Gives a slightly easier run in for the Tunisians. I'm sure they'll ease off, because whilst their next race won't be until later on this afternoon at 3 o'clock local time here in Barletta, they will want to make sure that they don't overexert themselves. Oh, slightly turbulent exit. Not the best start to the day for Tunisia. Ahmed Talbi, though, he's out. He's giving it great guns up the beach, looking to set a fast time at least, but it's not going to be quite as close to the British time of 2:36. We do a 2:50 there for Tunisia. So 2:50.48. Tunisia secure themselves a place into the last 8 and the quarterfinals later on today. Phoenix Robinson for the Bahamas, making his way up the beach. Great to see him bursting onto the world stage. Usually plays tennis back home. And great to see his strength improving year on year here, representing his home country. Sure, we'll have a quick turnaround and be on to the 4th of the under-19 mixed doubles in just a moment. You can see beautiful conditions here on the morning of the last day of racing. Starting to warm up as the heat of the sun takes an effect. The wind still very much an offshore wind, heading from the land offshore, which makes it a relatively straightforward move out. Chatting with our ocean yachts master James Scott earlier, and the effect that that has on the nature of the waves and the sea state is that it tends to flatten the waves slightly when you've got a wind moving from the land to the sea. But we expect that to pivot round as the land gets heated up by the sun this afternoon, causing a low pressure area over the land, drawing the air in from the sea as that low pressure hot air rises off the land, pulling the air in from the sea. That's why every afternoon here we've experienced that wind coming onshore. Racing here, though, Federico Pintus and Alice Maloney for Italy. Maloney doing the first sprint, and Marcos Delgado Marquez and Lola Garcia Juan for Spain. Here we have it then, the start of this 4th of the pre-quarterfinals for the under-19 mixed doubles. Fast start for Meloni of Italy. She's going to get into the boat first. Let's see whether they can turn that into a little bit of an advantage through the breaking waves. Relatively easy breaking waves here this morning. Not much, because Spain are just such quick starters. We see that in every single one of their squads, from under-19s up to the senior age categories. They're just so quick at getting that first stroke in, that even though Garcia Juan was slightly slower getting to the boat, they turned that round and they're level coming up towards the first turning point. Already round that now. Spain have the slightly better boat speed, but you can see the Italians just bouncing over those waves. Ideally, you want to keep your boat level, because each time you bounce over a wave, that just takes the shine off your speed. And that means that we now see Spain start to move into the lead. They didn't quite have those bouncing waves to contest with in their lane. It's always a little bit of a luck of the draw to what wave set's going to be coming through when it's your race time. Let's see how they handle this turn. It's tough work getting this spin right. Spaniards going for the very aggressive turn, jabbing in their blade. They've not turned it over. We've seen some very aggressive approaches to that turn where the athletes turn their blade upside down and jab it into the water. It acts like a handbrake. But it was a slightly faster turn for the Spaniards, so they've got a length and a half advantage now over Italy coming into the return leg now. Now they're facing into the wind. So very different set of conditions than they'll have faced in the time trial previously this week. But look at this, the Italians have caught a wave, and that is just seeing them shoot up and nearly get contact now with Spain. The Italians much closer onto the Spanish station, though, and this could mean that they're now rowing in the dirty water of Italy. That would be much more of a worry if you're in flat water rowing. It's not really an issue whatsoever if you're out on the sea. It just means that they're going to be coming on shore very close to Spain, and it'll be tricky to make sure they don't crash into each other on the beach, where there's always a little bit of a tangle of blades and a challenge to make sure that you have a clean exit. The Italians therefore having to correct now, so that means that they're going to be second onto the beach, and Spain's Federico Pintos is going to have all the lead he needs to make sure that he gets up that beach ahead of Marcos Delgado Marquez. No issues for Spain in the end. A close race nonetheless, but I think that their slightly faster start, slightly better turn, and then straighter navigation on the return leg earned them that lead. 2:42.26 their time, so very respectable time compared to some of the others. The second fastest time of the morning, in fact, so only beaten by Great Britain's 2:36 in the second race. So we'll keep our eyes on that, because the conditions through the course of these pre-quarterfinal races, 8 of them we've got, 8 pre-quarterfinals for the under-19 mixed double. They happen in relatively quick order, so there's not enough time for the conditions to change so significantly that the latter races are either slower or faster due to conditions, so they're a pretty fair comparison for us. Next up then, it's the 5th of these pre-quarters. Here we have Aurora Combs and Auréline Martin for France, alongside Lilian Cristaldo and Jack O'Toole for Australia. Quick recap, though, of that Italian-Spanish battle. Eyes fixed there from Garcia Juan of Spain onto her boat handler for all the guidance she needs to make sure that she's navigating the correct way around those buoys. If you're not familiar with beach sprint racing, 30 seconds penalty if you miss one of the pencil buoys, the first 2 turning points, and it's a minute penalty, or minute 20 in fact, for missing the big turning point at the end. So the penalty is so severe that it is always better to go back and go around the buoy correctly rather than incur that penalty, because you'll almost certainly do it faster than the penalty time. Jack O'Toole doing the running for Australia alongside Auréline Martin for France. You can see the process is quite clear. Lilian Cristaldo, one hand on the oars, one hand on the side of the boat, ready to step in. Important that she takes her time and doesn't do so until the buzzer goes, otherwise it's a 10-second penalty. Here we go then. Quick start for the Frenchman, but getting run through now by O'Toole. The Aussie first into the boat. Are they going to turn that into the first stroke advantage? Not quite. Both boats taking a first stroke at pretty much the same time. Slightly quicker getting the boat speed up for the French. They've clearly well drilled that starting process. Combs and Martin now coming out towards the first turning point. Combs eyes on that turning point. What you usually have in these doubles is that the bow person takes responsibility for the navigating, and that means that the stroke person can focus on just getting into the boat and listening for their calls. You'll typically have the bow person making a few calls, looking at their coaches or boat handlers on the beach who are giving them guidance on which way to push, and then they'll make a few calls, harder on the right, harder on the left for 3, harder on the left for 2, to make sure that they pivot in the correct direction. See the Aussies moving over towards the French here. Let's see if that means that they're going to take that buoy very, very wide. The fastest roundings of these buoys are typically when they go directly for the buoy and then handbrake turn around it. Some have a strategy of trying to keep the momentum and going wide around the buoy. It looks like that's what the Aussies have tried to do here, to try and keep the boat speed up. Don't think it's quite worked for them there. They've lost a couple of lengths in that turning point, allowing the French to really get ahead now. So they're going to have a fast return to the beach, Australia, if they want to get back into contention for a place into the quarterfinals. Lilian Cristaudo constantly looking over her shoulder, wanting to make sure they have the straightest line possible. That's a good thing, hitting that buoy, and particularly hitting it in the way that she did. Knocking it down with the rigger means that it won't have upset the blade rhythm, and those riggers just absolutely flatten it down to the water. And that also means that they're on the fastest and most direct route back to the beach. It's about a length and a half separating them now, but I think the French have just got onto the front of a wave here. Tricky point to have your blade work upset, because these waves are known to pivot your stern round, although now they're being held up by the wave in front of them. That has taken the speed right off their boat, although they've managed to just about pull ahead of it, not to any great advantage coming into the beach landing. Here comes Lilian. Aurora Combs running up the beach, in fact. Aurora Combs, I think, is going to take this win quite convincingly for France over Australia. It looks like their experience of beach sprint racing, handling that turn, handling the start, just really paid off there. They navigated a good straight line all the way back. That meant that they covered the shortest possible distance, and a clean, good victory for France there. They'll progress on to the quarterfinals, 2:43.15. So that is a good quick time. Just a second slower than the Spanish from the previous race. You can already see the next race getting set up. Austria on the left, Canada on the right. The volunteers and boat handlers here into a very, very slick routine of moving the boats around the field of play. There's a staging area just in front of each grandstand where they cycle through the boats, and that's the opportunity for the oncoming athletes and their boat handlers to take charge of the boat that they're going to be racing in, check that they've got the oars in the right place, and I think importantly, check that there are some seats in the boat. And then they'll take the boat forward stage by stage, so you essentially get ready 2 races before your race. Start customizing the boat to where you need it to be, and that includes things like moving the foot stretchers around depending on the length of your athlete's legs. These boats each have markings in them, so you can, based on the number that you know your foot stretcher to need to be on, you can just very, very quickly adjust it without having to get in and out of the boat to check. Lining up here then for Canada, John Liu and Ella Rose Duval. Ella Rose Duval doing the running for Canada. And Austria, the other way round, we have Teresa Berger in the bow seat, and therefore this is Justus Scheider for Austria doing the running. Here we go then. Hot off the mark was Ella Rose Duval, but the superior speed of the Austrian sees him get to the boat first. Let's see if they can turn that into an advantage. Yuri Suchak on the right there, Austrian athlete, helping to make sure that they get off to a quick start. They managed to take advantage of that slightly quicker sprint from Justus. Coming up to the first turning point, about a length up on Canada. Let's see how these 2 boats settle into their rhythms for this 250 meters. Many of them trying to get up to around 40 strokes a minute just to tick things over. That slightly higher rating seems to be working for many of these athletes, certainly on the outbound leg, to just make sure that they keep the boat speed up despite bouncing over waves that are incoming that tend to just take the edge off their boat speed. A little bit of an upset stroke there in the bows for John Liu of Canada. That sees their boat almost come to a standstill. So I think Austria now comfortably out in front. Let's see how they tackle this turning point. all things can change here if they get this wrong. They've gone very, very wide of it, which means that they're going to have to do quite a lot of work on their left-hand blade, their starboard blade, to really lever the boat round rather than try to use the handbrake effect of stopping the boat with their port side blade. Making their way back to the beach then, it looks like a pretty comfortable margin for Berger and Scheider. Slightly closer to the buoy, the Canadians. That may have allowed them to close the gap somewhat, but it's still just, I think, too much for them to close in on this return leg. As the wave formations change through the course of the day, I expect we'll start to see it get trickier on this return leg as the waves just get that much harder to row past. We often see the athletes stuck on the wrong side of one. We'll see this now here with the Austrians. They're coming up behind that wave, caught between two here, in fact. The wave's moving in slightly quicker than they did yesterday, which has meant that they haven't been as bogged down as we saw some of the athletes yesterday. In fact, that wave trailing them just caught up enough to give them a little bit of a lift on their stern that they can surf on the way back in. Tricky for Canada to keep straight. Quite a lot of corrections having to be put in there, which is all energy expended, not on moving the boat faster forwards. Theresa Berger for Austria out of the boat now. Looks like it's going to be a relatively comfortable sprint for her to get up the beach and claim the win on behalf of Austria. How are they going to do for time? A good quick one for Austria, 2:46.43. Canada's John Liu coming in to secure the second place in this race, but you can see the smile on Theresa's face. They've earned their place into the last 8 and possible contention for a medal later this afternoon. Two more races in this pre-quarter-final round for the under-19 mixed doubles. So we'll look forward to Belgium and Ireland up next. But what a cracking start that was for Austria. I think that fast sprint from Justus just got them going. And it's a very, very positive place to be when you're out in front and you can look back on your closest competitors and respond to anything that they do. It also gives you that little bit of motivation for the fact you're out in front to just try and hold on to it. Boats going into the water for the next race, Belgium and Ireland. Lining up here for Belgium, Julie de Klerk and Louise Magiels. Magiels doing the running, and Ireland's Kate Verling and Luke Noonan. Here we go then, underway with this 7th of the 8 pre-quarter-final rounds. Noonan getting down to the beach quickly. I think they've arrived at pretty much the same time. Boat handlers start to move the Irish boat forward as soon as he's in it, even before he's set up, just to get them that, oh, right and left. You can see him straight, giving the calls from the stroke seat. I think he's got the better view of the boat handlers and their advice. Belgium down by a length as we come past the first turning point, 100 meters out. Now having to move over towards the second turning point. So much navigation to do despite these waves pushing them, buffeting them around. In fact, we often see that the most highly drilled athletes and the most experienced are those that are able to make micro corrections during the course of a stroke. We see that so frequently from Hela Belhaj Mohammed, particularly when she's racing in the solo. She's able to make these amazing micro corrections as she notices a wave pushing her off course. She doesn't have to see, oh, I've been pushed off course by this wave. On the next stroke, I'll make an adjustment. She feels it happen, and she makes these amazing micro adjustments. You can see it live as it happens when we're following her from the stern. Ireland seem able to do that too. They've gone slightly long around this turning point, but so have Belgium. So no real disadvantage by having overshot, just a missed opportunity through not necessarily having been able to widen their lead. Although Belgium tangle up slightly there with the buoy. That opens the door for Ireland to pull away to now what looks to be 3 lengths of clear water out in front. Can they make sure that they get a clean and straight return leg? That's the key question now, coming back in to the shore. And what are the wave formations going to do to their boat speed? Ireland seem to match Belgium at the moment, but I think Belgium are just on the crest of the wave there, where Ireland are held up behind one. So that means Belgium are getting this bit of a boost. You can see it in the speed numbers on the screen. It's so vivid each time that they're either caught up behind a wave or managing to use one to their advantage. That's part of the skill, reading the wave formations and what's going to be happening, and they'll be thinking about it in their race strategies before they go out. What are they going to do if they find themselves caught up on one? Do they put in a power 5 strokes or something similar to just try and edge ahead of it, or do they just wait it out and go in with the wave, which is usually the less effective approach? Coming into the beach then, Kate Verling for Ireland's going to make the exit. Bit of a tumble, but no issue. They've got enough of an advantage. Oh, we've got Noonan coming out of the boat as well, just to make doubly sure. And it looks like it might have been a close one. Noonan takes the dive anyway, and that is part of the rules. Pretty much any athlete can exit the boat. It is usually the bow seat, because obviously they're further up the beach, but anybody can make the exit from the boat. We saw this yesterday in the quads racing. Matthew Dunham, the coxswain in the New Zealand coxed quad. As you can imagine, in the coxed boat, the coxswain doesn't have burnt out legs because he hasn't been rowing. And Matthew Dunham, being a sprinter himself, absolutely rapid up the beach. So despite Mike Brake being quick himself, the bow seat of the New Zealand boat, Dunham would often get out of the boat as well and make an effort, because if he can get there first, then that could be the difference between a race win and a race loss. The last thing you need to see is one of your rowers burned out from the max effort race they've just done, not able to sprint up the soft sand and the beach. So Noonan's clearly making it there just ahead of Verling. Here we go then, El Khamati. Omar El Khamati, bronze medalist in the under-19 men's solo yesterday. Now back in the boat in the under-19 mixed double, joined by Hannah El Sobki for Egypt. They're lining up alongside Colin Gogler for Germany with Monica Bunchu. Just a moment or two now until we get started with this last of the pre-quarterfinal rounds. El Khamati managed the bronze medal in the under-19 men's solo. Hannah El Sobki racing in the under-19 women's solo. She made it into the B final. Just missing out, though, behind Great Britain's Evelyn Pakule. British athlete taking the bronze, El Sobki taking 4th place. She's got another chance at the medals here, but first they've got to get into that last 8. And here we go. El Khamati doing the running for Egypt, getting quickly down to the beach there ahead of Monica Bunchu. Question is, can Egypt turn that into an advantage now? They're getting out quickly. We saw El Sobki racing yesterday. Very powerful athlete they've got in the bows of the Egypt boat. And we know with a bronze medalist in Omar El Khamati, they're going to be a boat to beat. And it's going to be hard work for this young German combination. Egypt out in front by about a length at this stage, coming up towards the 2nd turning point already. They'll be making sure they get that navigation right. Slightly bouncier ride for the Egyptians than the Germans, but they've navigated that to perfection, coming up past the 2nd turning point. Don't think they're going to have any issues with their blades hitting it. They've gone nice and close, but not too aggressive as to try and hit it with their rigger. Next up is the turning point. We saw some very aggressive approaches to that turning point from both of the Egyptian athletes in their solos. Let's Let's see if they follow a similar format here in the double. Not quite as aggressive. They've gone quite wide and long. Look, the Germans are much closer to their turning point. That means that they'll have managed to close in that gap slightly, as long as they don't get tangled up. There we have it. Germany now with overlap on Tunisia, just based on them taking that turn slightly better than the Egyptians. So we're back on with a race now as Germany have closed in. I was worried that Egypt were going to run away with it. So let's see how this pans out in the return leg. Now they're coming into the oncoming wind that's moving from the land to the sea. Egypt, though, just such a powerful combination. They've extended to a length and a half of clear water in this return leg. Just an arrow straight trajectory for the beach. No issues with the navigation when you've got El Sobki in the bows. She'll be making the sprint up the beach. I think she'll have enough of a safety margin to stay out ahead of Colin Gogler of Germany. It gets a little bit stodgier as you come into the last 30 meters. You can see how much they just slowed down there in the shallow water. Oh no, not a great finish for El Sobki. So we see El Kamati make the run up the beach just to be sure. And it's no issue for Omar El Kamati of Egypt, getting there just before Colin Gogler for Germany. So Egypt progress on to the last 8 and the quarterfinals for the under-19 mixed double. Well, what a great way to start our day here on the last day of racing at the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals, a 2:40 for Egypt. So still the fastest time of the morning, a 2:36 by Great Britain, but I believe Egypt earned themselves the second fastest time of the day. So that'll be one to watch when it comes to the quarterfinals later on this afternoon that we can enjoy from 3 o'clock. And we'll go through all of those quarterfinals, immediately followed by the semi-finals, immediately followed by the finals, all taking place between 3 and 3:45 this afternoon, local time here in Barletta, Italy. Well, I have some news for you. Due to the technical issues between that race between Tunisia and Bahamas, where the Tunisians didn't have a seat to start with, and the Bahamans' seat came off just as they were getting going, it's going to be another restart. So we've got another opportunity for the Bahamas to try and get into that last 8 and make sure that they progress in this competition. So that means we'll see Hela Belhaj, Mohammed and Ahmed Talbi putting in another solid effort this morning, as will Phoenix Robinson and Renea Ingraham. Tough work. They'll have essentially done 3 starts before lunchtime today. In fact, before brunch time, I should say. It's only 9:45 local time here in Italy. So everybody getting a good run out. So I am pretty sure all of the boat handlers here now will have double, triple checked the seats. Let's hope they've also double, triple checked the foot stretchers and the gates and made sure absolutely everything is locked in. Oh, sharp intake of breath. That was nearly a false start for the Bahamas. Could this race have any more little hurdles to have a clean start? Luckily, she stepped back all before the buzzer actually went, so I'm sure this time we're going to have the right conclusion to the race, i.e. no technical issues getting in our way whatsoever. Fast start for Tunisia, we always expect that, but there's a powerful combination in our young athletes from the Bahamas, Robinson and Ingram, 15 and 16 years of age in that boat. They haven't let the rapid Tunisians get away from them. They've still got overlap coming past the first turning point. Great start, therefore, from the Bahamas, moving now over to the other side of their lane to make sure that they go on the correct side of the second turning point. It's about a length and a quarter now that the Tunisians have eked out, but I'm sure the Bahamas will be feeling quite well buoyed on by the fact that they've had a fast start here. A lot of checking going on from Phoenix Robinson in the bows of the Bahamas boat, taking a very aggressive line past that second turning point. That's just what they'll need, the fastest and most direct route to the end of the line, and he hit it perfectly. The buoy being knocked down by the rigger. That's what you want. If you're taking that aggressive line, you want to flatten that buoy with the rigger, not with the oar. That's exactly what they've done. So coming up to the turning point now, could be an opportunity for them to close the margin that Tunisia have over them. Good turn for the Bahamas. Let's see if they can get that boat up to speed now. A lot of effort going in on the starboard blades, the ones held in their left hands. Hard work getting the boat back up to speed. It's like doing a max effort clean and jerk in the gym with a weightlifting bar, because these boats weigh a lot, and to get them up to speed from an essential standstill after doing the turning point is such a big effort, especially when you've just done 250 meters at max effort already. So coming into the shore now, we can see that the rolling waves giving a good advantage to Tunisia here, just letting them surf in. Not too much of an issue hitting that buoy that time, but that is the sort of thing you want to try to avoid, is hitting it with your oar. You either go around it entirely and don't touch it, or you clatter it down using one of your riggers, just like we saw the Bahamas do a moment ago. Tunisia make landfall first, so we're going to see Ahmed Talbi get out of the boat. Good exit from him, and they're going to take the win here. I think a comfortable margin ahead of Robinson and Ingram for the Bahamas. So Tunisia take the win here now. 2:40.56, so 8 seconds quicker than their previous attempt, which means that's quite interesting, because that puts them almost level for the time with Egypt for the second fastest time behind Great Britain. Stunning performance, though, from the Bahamas. Glad this time everybody had a clean race, no technical issues getting in the way. So progression remains as it was 5 minutes ago, but we know now that there were no technical issues impeding progression. Well, we've got a few moments before the next race coming up here at the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals in Barletta, Italy. In a moment, we're moving on to the Coastal Men's Solo Last 16. Looking at this recap, though, delighted to have finally had a clean race in that round for the under-19 mixed doubles. But while we watch and enjoy this race, I am now delighted to be joined in the commentary box by world champion Corey Rogers. Corey, congratulations, mate. Very well done for yesterday.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter.
It's good to have you here. Thank you for joining us for a little bit of commentary. While we wait for the next race to come up, tell us, how was it yesterday? How did it feel getting through, and what was the race like?
It was honestly quite a relief getting through that first quarterfinal. I mean, that's where all the pressure starts. Just getting into that medal position, making either A or B final, and we got really lucky catching a wave back on the quarterfinal against GB. Really strong boat. And then we had a great race against New Zealand with quite a few Olympians in the boat, and then we were able to bring it home in the final against Italy, which was a great race. I mean, great. Happy to be there. Happy to race against such strong competitors.
Yeah, it was such an exciting final. That, I mean, a real nail-biter. And I think you guys seem to have this awesome format with who's doing the running for you? Coral.
That's right.
Coral doing the running and the coxing, and then you've got this secret weapon in the bow with Chris, who's sitting in the bow, and then you're in the engine room in the middle of the boat. Now, when it comes to beach sprint racing, obviously we've seen you for the last couple of years. I think we first met in Oeiras in Portugal.
Right. That's right.
And how have you taken things on? Because now you're a world champion in the boat class. What have you done differently this year compared to previous years?
Without our coach, Mark Oria, I mean, none of us would be here. And every year we get a little bit smarter, we get a little bit faster, we get stronger. So it's really paying off more and more. And, I mean, I have to give all thanks to my wonderful teammates and, of course, my coach.
It's a cool team you've got. And I think Brooke's coming down later on.
That's right.
Today, so we'll look forward to her being here. But just before we chat a little bit more, following that Tunisia-Bahamas race, we're going to jump down to the start line and hear from the winners, Ahmed Talbi and Hela Belhaj Mohammed.
So, over to Neve.
So I am with Ahmed Talbi of Tunisia. So you had to race 3 times pretty much there. Well, you had to do 3 starts. So there was a false start, then you did your race and you had to re-race again. So tell me, was that tough to do all those starts and all those races?
Yeah, certainly it was. The first race was very stressful because my chair didn't. I look at the boat and I didn't find the chair, so a technical problem. But I think so the second and third race were good. The time was better in the third race.
Yeah, so we actually saw you standing up in the boat for the first time because you were trying to get the seat going. Then, of course, so you restarted again, and you were actually telling me that you think it's very fair that you had to go again for the third time.
Yeah, we had our problem, and then they had one, so it's fair to do the third race.
So, of course, you're rowing with a triple world champion, Hela. She won her gold medal yesterday. It must be very nice and very confident for you, or gives you confidence to have her in the boat with you.
Yeah, I'm confident and also proud to be in the boat with the world champion.
Yeah, amazing. Tunisia so strong in beach sprints. So go have a break, rest up, because you'll be up again soon. Thank you so much and best of luck later.
Great to hear from Talbi, who's just earned their place in the mixed double round to the last 8. But we're moving on now to the knockouts and the last 16 for the Coastal men's solo. Now, Corey, what's it like out there on the water? I mean, today it's a little bit choppier than it was yesterday morning, but as the waves pick up and the wind picks up through the afternoon, what's it actually like out there?
Yeah, I mean, the video just does not do justice. I mean, once you start getting out there, you get the big rollers, and I mean, it's really, we've noticed yesterday, it's just knocking people off their seats, and I mean, it happened to France in the quarterfinal, and I mean, the bow seat just had 5-6 strokes, we just wasn't on the sea, and then just gives anyone else the opportunity to catch up.
Yeah, and that's where your experience comes in, right? Because you've been doing this for a few years now, and you know what it's like to be out there in the water. But where do you train?
Honestly, I train mostly on a river.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So, well, there's some currents on the river, but we don't have many currents here. So I suppose you're having to rely on your experience from, well, Saundersfoot and Oeiras then?
That's right. Yeah. And then, I mean, we try and get out in the ocean and do training trips as much as we can to really dial into that coastal environment.
That's brilliant. And where are you all from in your boat? Where are you all based around the US? Are you able to get together frequently, or do you have to wait until you get out here?
We really have to wait quite a bit. Coral, our coxswain, is studying at UPenn in Philadelphia. I am trained and based at university in Austin, Texas, and so is Alexa behind me, and then Jenny works in Boston, and Chris is honestly all over the place, but he's based in Ohio.
Okay, wow. So you guys are a little bit scattered around.
Yeah.
And were you in Donoratico last week doing some practice? Tell us about that. How was that?
Oh, that was something else. That was beautiful. So many thanks to Felipe and having everything organized, and we were able to be really close with Team New Zealand and part of Team Spain with Ender Martin, world champion, and it was just surreal. They were able to put a little clash race against us, and we did a little relay against us in New Zealand, and they showed us the factory, and it was just so beautiful.
That's so cool. And Donoratico, for those who aren't familiar with it, just down the coast from Pisa. It's about half an hour's drive, I think, just south of Pisa. Did you manage to get into Pisa and have a look around?
No, but I know that Team New Zealand did quite a bit of sightseeing. I know they went to Florence, and they got to see beautiful water there.
Yeah? Oh, brilliant. Well, that's cool. So you did a bit of racing, and that's what I love about the sort of progression of the beat sprint variant of rowing, is like you guys training with the Kiwis and with Ander Martin from the Spanish squad. It's like when you look at some of the emerging sports out there, like you look at CrossFit, they all train together.
Yeah.
And that's how you get better. The sort of historical protectionist approach to sport, where you keep everybody separate and nobody's allowed to know what each other's doing,
Yeah.
doesn't result in the best athletes. It's like you've got to have you've got to have people to push you.
Exactly.
And that means you've got to train with them, and that's clearly what paid off for you guys, because it was essentially you and the Kiwis who you've clearly been racing with just last week, pushing each other all the way up to this World Champs.
Yeah, I mean, that semifinal, I mean, it couldn't have come down to a more enjoyable race. I was just, if I was to win or to lose to anyone, I was so happy that it was the Kiwis, because it didn't even feel like we were racing. It felt like we were back in Don Radico practicing.
That's so cool. And what do you guys pick up from each other? Do you have any like learning points that you took away from having raced with them that you think, oh, I liked what I saw there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just their attitude towards everything. I mean, you can't learn from better athletes. I mean, Michael sitting in bow, I mean, just came off 2021, winning the Olympics in the 8. Joe Sullivan, such a legacy in the sport. I mean, 2012 Olympian champion. And you got Jackie, who just qualified for Paris, and Matt, who's definitely going to do it next year. Just, I mean, I couldn't be more grateful to be around such
a pretty cool
wonderful
bunch to hang out with when you put it like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
When you go through their pedigree and the medal roster, it's, you know, top of the world type people.
Yeah, really.
And yeah, how cool. Well, you're now in that category too. You got yourself a gold medal to take home. How cool's that? What are you going to do with that? Have you spoken to mum and parents back home?
Yeah.
Were they watching online, or are they here?
They stayed up late. They kept up with the race. I was kind of in my little headspace, in my zone, so I didn't get to text them back until after they were asleep. But I called them this morning, and they were very proud of me. So felt good.
That's so cool. Well, what a result! And you were also racing in the mixed double.
That's correct.
Not quite getting through from the last 16. Quite a gassy race to put down. You were alongside the Italians, I think. How was it, though? Because you were doubling up, so that's just a lot of effort and a lot of racing.
Yeah, I mean, that was when we were done with the quad. That was already the 4th race of the day, back-to-back, and a 12-minute center from start to finish just really wasn't enough. And, you know, we got hit with quite a bit of waves off the start. We had a great start. Christina's speedy on the legs, so she gave us that good lead, and we caught 4 waves right off the start, and we couldn't catch Italy. You know, hats off to them for the bronze. So I mean, they definitely deserved it.
Yeah, hard work, but well done nonetheless. So you've got the day off now.
That's right.
And are you racing next weekend? Are you coming back for the endurance?
I will be here.
Amazing. So who are you racing with next weekend? Tell us about your lineup.
Oh, it'll be wonderful. I'm with Christine again.
Cool.
In the mixed double, and Christopher Bach, who's coming up in about 10 minutes. Him and I will be racing in the men's double.
Okay, so you're doubling up again in the doubles.
That's right.
Very cool. And yeah, Chris is up alongside Aubrey Oldham for Canada. I was chatting to Aubrey earlier, and he's feeling pretty positive.
Oh yeah, I mean, that is exactly quite symmetrical situation of how it's going to be with New Zealand on the quad. I mean, Aubrey and Chris have raced against each other so many times.
And they're good mates as well. So it's like
best of friends.
I like that, what we saw yesterday with Malachi Anderson and Fugazzotto,
exactly.
the Italian.
Exactly.
Like, become really close mates.
Yeah.
And now they raced each other in the end, and Malachi came away with the silver, Fugazzotto with the gold, and they were able to just be so happy for each other.
Exactly.
So it's quite a nice way to end that round.
Yeah.
Right, we look now to the first of the men's solo pre-quarterfinals. Adrian Miramon Quiroga for Spain, alongside Adam Bujnowski for Poland. Oh, a bit of a pause there between the attention and the go, just to keep us nervous. But look at Miramon Quiroga for Spain. Absolutely rapid. I mean, he is the world-class
he is
sprinter, isn't he?
He is definitely the highest of the high in the sport, and he is quite the competitor for Adam to go against today.
Yeah, so it's going to be hard work for Adam, this one. But let's see how this progresses for them. I mean, Miramon Quiroga, world champion in 2019. Pretty sure that's not the only time. He's look at this lead already. Goodness me. The wave's starting to sharpen up a little bit. They were big rollers about an hour ago. Starting to get a little bit spikier as they come in now. What's it like when you're out there then, Corey, when it comes to bouncing over these? Does it just take the edge off the speed, or how do you handle it?
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult. So, I mean, you could just see on the speed screen right here, Adrian was up by at least 4 more higher on speed, and once you get into those rollers around the second buoy, it just drops such a bit. So it's really who can control it more, who can stay on the seat. You know, you can either cut the slide or just really crank the back end to like keep the speed as high as possible.
Yeah, it looks really tricky. And do you adjust your rating to compensate for that on the way out versus the way back?
Oh,
or you just have you just do what feels right?
You definitely have to. I mean, it is constantly changing. So, you know, yesterday in the quad, after the first buoy, you had to play with the rate quite a bit. You know, whenever you get a good 5-6 stroke burst, you got to get it in.
Certainly looks tough. And now this is what I enjoy seeing. I mean, when they manage to get onto a wave and just ride it in, it looks like the Spaniard, Adrian, is on the crest of a wave there, and it's giving him a bit of a surf push.
Yes.
How does that feel when you catch it like that?
It feels wonderful. I mean, you just feel the bow pick up, and you'll know exactly when you're on it. And I mean, just like we just saw Adrian's speed just spiked up, and I mean, he picked up at least another 2 boat lengths. Like right there, he's cutting the slide. You know, he's checking on starboard, make sure he's riding the waves spot on.
And what's the fear when you're surfing like that? It's spinning round, isn't it?
Oh yeah, you'll know when you start spinning out, and it's really hard to come back when the teeter has gone too far.
Yeah. So what can you do? I mean, you've just got to really heave it around on one side. You're just basically trying to keep straight then, aren't
you? Exactly. Just crank on the opposite side and keep it still.
Well, here we go. Miramon Quiroga at 2:35. That's quick in the solo. I think that's exactly what you'd expect from the world champion from Spain. And Adam Bujnowski for Poland taking second place. So I think he'll have been a little bit upset to have seen he drew Adrian Miramon Quiroga in his first round of the last 16.
Yeah, you got a tough draw.
Well, I think that's gone exactly according to the form book. The Spaniard taking the win. Now they do a quick turnaround. Aubrey Oldham racing for Canada alongside Chris Back, the world champion of 2022 in Saundersfoot. And there's that iconic picture of him going across the finish line.
Yes.
Like that. Such a cool shot.
Yes.
It's one of the things that we get in the speed sprint racing is that finish line, either diving into the sand for a photo finish or you actually get your athletes on the shore rather than sat out on the water when they cross the finish line. That's the fun element to it.
Exactly.
But next weekend, Corey, you're racing in the endurance event. What's going to be? How do you handle the difference in your training between that and this for the sprint?
Yeah, I mean it's quite different. You know, from 500 to then hopefully making the final. It goes all the way up to 6K. Just you really got to get your meters in. You know, it's completely different heart rate zone training and quite a bit of volume.
Now tell us about this man, Chris Back, world champion from Saundersfoot last year. He's the one to watch in this category.
He is the one to watch. I mean, he wants it more than anyone else.
And he's drawn up alongside Aubrey Oldham. Good friends, these two. I was chatting to Aubrey this morning, and he said he's got nothing to lose. He can just go out there and give it absolutely everything. He's up alongside the world champion, who's a little bit concerned, I think, is honest and fair to say when you see you pulled up alongside Chris Back, the world champion from last year. But Audrey's no slouch himself.
No. I mean, he's been in this longer than anyone, really. I mean, they'll know it's going to be a good race from both of them, and Aubrey is such a wonderful competitor to be against.
He's gone for the go faster haircut this year compared to last year.
Yeah.
His ponytail last year. Both of these two eyes up on the starting flag. Chris Back that little bit quicker down the beach. Look at him go. No stopping him.
Not at all. Yeah, he's first to the boat. Really good start here.
There we have it. Aubrey getting underway. Chris Back already a length up, though. Oh, getting washed down by a couple of waves. I think that's opened the door for Aubrey Oldham to draw up level. His parting words to me after I was chatting to him earlier was, get ready for the upset, Peter. And he's level, if not a little bit edging ahead, the Canadian.
Yeah, it's a close race right here up to the second buoy. We see Chris is about a knock and a half faster. He's definitely gaining up.
Yeah, this is going to be a race here. Are you getting nervous, Corey? Because obviously you're in the US squad with
Chris, so you don't have to be unbiased while you're with me here in the commentary box.
I definitely have a biased opinion coming into this. I know personally, training with Chris for 3 years now, he when he turns red, he's gonna go.
Yeah, look at this. He's managed to pull ahead on the way into that buoy. Just shows some immense power from him. Looking pretty level around the turning point.
Yeah, I know Chris has this one.
Yeah, I'm hearing your confidence there. Aubrey's having a great race, though.
Yeah,
race of his life.
He really
up
is.
alongside the world champion. He'll be pleased with this performance, even if he comes off second best. But he's not second best now. I think he's edging out in front. I see you sliding around in your seat there, Corey. What a race. The firefighter from Toronto, Aubrey Oldham. His family back home. He's got a 1-year-old back home with his partner, Leanne. Now, Chris starting to pull ahead. I think he's just managed to find a better wave formation there, now pulling up to just over a length up on the Canadian.
Yeah, who can really ride the waves and not get stuck right in between them for this last about 100 meters to the run. Right now, Chris is about to ride another one, so yeah, I'm going to put my money on Chris right now.
Yeah, this seems to be paying off for Chris. Oh, it's going to come. Oh, yeah, Aubrey's just got entirely bogged down in a couple of waves there.
Yeah, Chris looking over. He sees he's got this one. Slight jog. Yep.
Yeah, that's gone according to the form book. There was a moment, though, where I think the person inside me always wants to root slightly for the underdog. Was sort of hoping that Aubrey was going to come in for a close finish. Great race from both of them, but it's gone according to the form book. Chris back, taking the win there in 2:38.06. Yeah. So 3 seconds slower than Miramon Quiroga from the previous race. There were a few hurdles he had to overcome there with some slightly boggy water. But fantastic performance, though, from Aubrey Oldham. I enjoyed that.
That was good.
That was a good race,
wasn't it? That was good. I mean, we could look in Chris chose an opposite lane of Adrian, so we'll see how that might play into effect later. And, Adrian seemed to be having a little bit less waves on the left side on that lane 1.
Yeah, look at this. He got really bogged down through those first few strokes. A couple of breakers just slamming his boat to a standstill. But he did have great power. I mean, that return leg was really good for him. Wasn't it? They were pretty much level coming around the far turning point. But I think Chris just had the slightly better wave formations on the way back. Now then, we look to the next race. Exciting stuff here. Giovanni Ficra for Italy alongside Alexis Fortier for France.
Oh, yeah, definitely the hometown favorite. We got Gio here winning in Portugal.
Yeah, Ficra, the world champion from 2021. That's right. So when we look back at the winners, we've got all 3 of them in this. We've got Miramon Quiroga from 2019, Ficra from 2021, and Chris from 2022.
This will be quite the race when the bracket starts to tighten up.
Yeah. Boat's getting ready to go in the water. Alexis Fortier, no slouch either. We've seen him.
The Europeans.
The Europeans, exactly.
He is quite strong in this event as well. Nice start by Gio here.
Look at him go. He's a sprinter, isn't he? Absolutely rapid. Fortier, the 4th place finisher in the mixed coxed quad from last year, so just missed out on a medal. Now he's trying his chances in the solo, but goodness me, he's going to have his work cut out. What a start for Ficra.
Yeah. Almost losing an oar there.
Yeah, that was a challenging set of waves he's had to batter through, and that's meant that Fortier is back in contention. He's gained overlap again now, coming to past the first turning point.
France right now is cooking. I mean,
that was quick, right?
Yeah. He's just flying through these waves, cutting right through. You might give Gio a run for his money right here.
I think he's going to. Ficra is looking across, thinking, what on earth's going on?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna give the advantage to France right here.
Yeah, this is he's ooh.
And there it is.
A couple of wobbles for Fortier. Now, when it comes to this turning point, Corey, how do you like to handle that? Are you going for the aggressive stop? What do you do in the double with Christine? Do you turn your blade over and jam it in, or are you going for a slightly wider sweeping turn?
I mean, the weather is always, and the water conditions are always changing, but you know, that's exactly why you have to practice for so long. I mean, that was a great turn right here. I think 2 strokes around for France, and he's in the lead.
He's on a wave there, isn't he?
But yeah, I mean, it's always constantly changing. So we have to play and, I mean, be ready for any circumstance. But right now, I'm going to give the edge to France, and he seems to be pushing away slightly.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Considering his slower start, I mean, Figueroa was running away with it through the first 50 meters on the water.
Right now, he's just, I don't know, he's fighting that wave.
He is, yeah. He was just caught on the wrong side of the crest, wasn't he?
Yeah. Italy trying to capitalize on that. Yep, he's just right on the back of it.
Oh, that's why I love watching these beach sprints. It's just amazing how they've got to handle the waves, and it can just be race ending if you don't quite get on the correct side of one. This is going to come down to this beach sprint now, isn't it?
Yes, it's looking like it's going to tighten up. France here picking up the speed. We'll see who has a little bit more gas in the tank.
Yeah, let's check out this exit. Figueroa, oh, no problem. Look at that.
Yeah.
Textbook exit. And we saw how fast he was coming down the beach in front of the home fans here in Italy. You got to feel a little bit for Fortier, though, because he put in such a great on-water segment.
Yeah, he did. If he rode that wave a little bit differently, I mean, maybe it would have turned out just a little in his favor.
That's it, isn't it? It's if he had a couple of big strokes, maybe he could have gotten ahead of it.
Exactly.
And ridden it in rather than be bogged down behind it. But the shoulda, coulda, wouldas.
Exactly. Like wonderful racing by both of them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think the form book says that Figueroa was going to get through. So that means that we already know that Miramon Quiroga is through from the first race, the world champion from 2019. Chris Back's through from the second race, the world champion from last year. Figueroa is through from the third race, the world champion from 2021. Who have we got lined up next? I almost don't want to look because the caliber's so strong in this form for the men's solo. Look at this recap, though. Rapid start for Figueroa. Let's see how they get off. I mean, it was a quick start on the water, but he just got utterly bogged down where Fortier didn't get held back whatsoever. That allowed him to draw up level alongside Figueroa. You could see the confusion on his face, couldn't you? He was looking across thinking, what's happened here? How is he back alongside me? Is a solo ever in your future, do you think, Corey, or are you a crew boater?
I don't know. I mean, Chris is definitely the one to be in the U.S. I mean, if not the world, trying out here to defend his title. So for now, it might just be the team boats.
Fair enough. Well, here, though, we have Joel Naukarinen for Finland. He joined me in the commentary box yesterday. And the big man from Finland. He competes in the indoors, the flat water and the coastal. And then this is Aleš Suski for Czechia, coached by Libor Kubric.
Yeah, Joel, bronze medalist from last year's Worlds. He's going to try and capitalize as much as possible on this rough water as he did last year, which worked tremendously in his favor.
I think so. Now, when it comes to the lane selection, we saw Chris in lane 2, and we saw Aubrey in lane 1. Now, Joel's in lane 1, in lane 2 here. Getting them muddled up. He's on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
I think the numbering is that, Chris was in lane 1 on the right-hand side. Joel's here in lane 2 on the left-hand side. There we go. Let's see how they get off. But what's your thinking, Corey, behind lane selection? Is there any difference? What would you go for?
Right now it seems pretty even. It really has to depend also on the athletes. What are they best at? Some people are better at handling waves, and they want a little harder push on the way out, and more waves to ride back on the way in. Or they just want flatter water. They have more watts to put down.
And do you see a difference between the lanes that would make you choose one over the other?
Right now, not really. I
mean,
mean,
much the same, right?
Right now, Joel is doing really well out in his lane, and I mean, so did Adrian. But Chris did well in the lane that Czech Republic's in right now. So it's really it seems pretty fair right now.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Joel
Doesn't seem
out
too
to
much different. He's got some
Crazy.
horsepower, hasn't he?
Oh my God! I mean, have you seen that guy in person? He's a freaking monster.
He is.
His biceps are the size of my head.
Absolute man mountain. I enjoy watching him getting ready to go on the indoors as well, and the sort of shouting and screaming, psyching themselves up before the 2K race and the 500-meter sprints on the indoors. And look at this. That's an aggressive turn, isn't it? Oh, lost his outside blade.
Yeah, he's definitely about 2 boat lengths up, maybe 3. I mean, he's just going to try and push as much as he can, hopefully try and ride a wave in, but...
And he's such a softly spoken bloke as well. They often are the giants, aren't they?
He is.
Gentle giant, and but you can see him putting the horsepower down now.
Exactly. He's not letting up at all. Definitely outrating Czech Republic right here.
Yeah. A couple of lengths of clear water there already.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to go according to the form book. Now, Karenin, having raced for Finland for many years on the flat water.
Yes.
We see him pretty much every year in the coastals as well. So he was saying to me the other day that, well, yesterday, that he enjoys the fact that this is towards the end of the season. This is now his holiday.
Yeah.
So he can enjoy this, and this is sort of reminding him of the fun of rowing.
Exactly.
Which is so nice.
Yeah, Joel's definitely going to walk away with this one, and, I mean, this is going to be the first upset we see of the morning.
Yeah, it's super, this. Last couple of strokes. Ooh. Foot caught on the rigger. Not the prettiest of exits, but he can jog up the beach, certain to progress on to the next round.
Joel,
so now Karenin certain for the win. What a race for him. Let's have a look at his time. 2:45 flat.
Joel, very excited with that performance.
That's good, isn't it? 2:45 flat. 7 seconds slower than Chris, but he wasn't pushed, was he? So
no.
Chris might be a little bit nervous about that then. But a great result for now Karenin. Well, we're halfway through the 8 races for the last 16 in the men's solo. Corey, what's your plan for the rest of today? Are you out there supporting? Are you doing any boat handling or anything?
Sadly, I will not be boat handling. We have 2 wonderful boat handlers, Mark Oria and Chip Norden. I mean, no one can. It would not be beneficial if I took one of their spots at all. They know exactly what they're doing down to a science.
Well, you can be chief cheerleader then, I take it.
Oh, exactly.
I'll be in the crowds.
I'll be hype control.
Well, Corey, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Peter.
Having you here in the commentary box. Thanks so much for joining us. We've really enjoyed your insights into what it's like out there on the water. So we'll catch up with you in a bit, I think.
Wonderful.
And, yeah, we look forward to also seeing you racing yourself next weekend. Who are you racing for next weekend?
I'll be racing under Next Level Rowing for the U.S.
Next Level Rowing, so we'll keep our eyes peeled for that. Corey,
Wonderful.
Thanks, mate. You take care.
Likewise. Thank
Catch you later. Next race up then is the 5th of the pre-quarterfinals. We've got Zygomantis Galasanskis for Lithuania alongside Geronimo Haman Zlatar of Peru. Galasanskis, a well-known athlete from the Flatwater edition, frequently racing for Lithuania. Perhaps one of the favorites in terms of size and dimensions. He's going to have the horsepower, but will he have the boat handling and expertise for the coastals? Attention. There we go. He at least knew to look up to the flag. It's a crucial and important distinguish, because if the buzzer doesn't go, the race has still started as soon as the umpire drops the flag. He gets to his boat first, in slightly shallower water than the Peruvian. The Peruvian opting to start out in the deeper water. And it's a good start for the Peruvian. Haman Zlatar out in front by a length or so. Choppy, difficult conditions coming up towards the first turning point. Work to do for Galasanskis of Lithuania to close that 1 length lead of the Peruvian coming up towards the second turning point. Lithuanian is the coastal solo champion from the Europeans last year. So no stranger to the podium. He'll be thinking about how to make sure that he closes this margin down. Otherwise, he may not get into the last 8, which would be a bit of a shock upset here this year, considering he was the gold medalist at the Europeans last year, 4th place at the World Championships in 2021. But he's got work to do. This Peruvian is absolutely rapid. Geronimo Hamanslatar out in front. I think now we're starting to see his speed fade compared to Galisanskis. Galisanskis going a bit wide there on the return leg. There's still a length and a half in it on this return, so it's going to come down to who can make the best use of these waves on the return leg and make sure that they don't get disadvantaged hanging behind a wave. I think we're going to see this Peruvian bogged down between 2. You can now see the Lithuanians start to move through and try to take the lead. So difficult when you get caught between 2 waves like Zlatar is right now. And that means that Galisanskis has moved up alongside, and they are level coming up towards the beach now. The retreating water from the shore tends to stop these boats dead in the last 50 meters. I think we're going to have a race. Oh, here we go. Both out of the water. The Lithuanians struggling in the deep water. Zlatar was out on the deep water as well, so it's going to come down to this sprint. Both of them struggling to get their feet up over the waves, and Galisanskis is out in front, and the Peruvian knows it. Oh, what a race, though. I mean, that was all for Peru to win, but those couple of waves just taking the edge off the boat speed on that return leg. Such hard work, but Galisanskis progresses on to the next round, and despite a super race from Geronimo Hamanslatar, it is the Lithuanian who takes the win in 2:43. So a great time from him. A couple of seconds quicker than now Karanen from the previous race. Work to do then in the next race. We've got Gregor Hall for Great Britain alongside Joe Sullivan of New Zealand. But we're going to have a quick look at the recap from this race just gone. It was a super start for the Peruvian, getting out in front, and he was holding it quite comfortably on the outbound leg. Good quick turn from him too, but it was the return usage of the waves that meant the Lithuanian took the lead, or drew level at least coming to the shore. And you can see here how the Peruvian was bogged down between 2 waves, opening the door for Zygimantas Galisanskis of Lithuania to take the win.
1 minute.
So we've now got Joseph Sullivan for New Zealand there. Saw him racing in the mixed coxed quad yesterday. Now here in the coastal solo alongside Gregor Hall for Great Britain. Last moment before we get started here. You heard the starting umpire. In fact, that wasn't the starting umpire. That was our man, the announcer from the NFL, giving the instruction to get ready, but previously to put the boat in the water. Here we go then. We've got Great Britain, Gregor Hall making a great start to this sprint. Absolutely amazing stuff from him, alongside bronze medalist from the coxed quad of yesterday, Joe Sullivan for New Zealand. Gregor Hall getting in the boat first. Let's see how they get underway. Looked like Gregor Hall got the first couple of strokes in, but not managing to break away from Joe Sullivan of New Zealand. A couple of waves just slowing Sullivan down in that first 30 meters. Means that Gregor Hall gets to the first turning point first. See how they adjust course towards the second. Sullivan won't have appreciated having that buoy get in his way, but he's on a great line towards the second, if a little bit wide. Couple of corrections there to make sure he's taking the quickest course. He's a length and a half down on Great Britain's Gregor Hall, coming up towards the second turning point now. Gregor Hall, 4th place last year in Saundersfoot, just missing out on the medals, but making it through to the B final. So he'll be looking to try and get on that podium this year. Joe Sullivan doubling up between the Cox quad and this solo, who's part of the crew, or the team, the New Zealand team training in Donna Attico alongside the Americans just a week ago. Gregor Hall out in front though. Let's see how these athletes handle the return leg. It's what upset the Peruvian in just the previous race. And it all come down to where they sit in those waves on this return leg. I think Gregor Hall just on the wrong side of a wave there has meant that we've got Sullivan getting overlap now into this return leg. Gregor Hall trying to get in front of that swell. It's quite tough to tell on the picture, but he is on top of a rolling wave, just perhaps on the wrong side of it. You can see how it slowed his boat down there, which means that Sullivan, who is on the correct side of a wave, oh, a bit of an upset for Hall there, passing the boys. So we've got them level coming in, but the momentum is with Sullivan coming into the shore. Sullivan's going to make landfall before Gregor Hall. It's going to come down to the sprint, but I think Sullivan's going to manage to get out of the boat earlier and could well see him sprinting up. But Gregor Hall had the fastest sprint just on the way down to the boat. A trip for Sullivan. I think Sullivan's got the race win in him now. Despite his best effort, Gregor Hall not quite on terms with Sullivan to the line. So Joe Sullivan takes the win for New Zealand. He's pleased with that. I think he was a little bit nervous coming into the return leg. The return leg just seeming that little bit more straightforward in lane 2. Just managing to avoid some of the boggy waves that we've just seen hold up Gregor Hall, and similarly in the previous race, Zlatar from Peru. So Sullivan will be pleased with that. A 2:36. Rapid stuff from him, just a second slower than Miramon Quiroga. Two races left in this last 16 for the men's solo before we get into the last 16 for the women's solo. Absolutely jam-packed schedule of racing today. We're going through all the last 16s through this morning, and the only remaining category being the women's solo after this set for the men's solo, before we're into the medal finals for the PR3 Mixed double, and then the last 8, or the quarterfinal and rapid rounds for the under-19 doubles, the men, women and mixed, and then the senior men's solo and women's solos to wrap up our day. And this, the last day of racing here at the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals, Barletta, Italy. Look at this. Hall was out in front at the far turning point, but just an expert use of the wave formations on the return leg. Sullivan, despite tripping, still managing to get to the buzzer before Gregor Hall. Next race, though, we've got Claudio Rodrigues Barbosa for Portugal in lane 1, and Karl Schultz for Germany in lane 2. Claudio Rodrigues Barbosa, 4th place at the Europeans this summer in San Sebastian. He'll be looking to try and get a podium here this year at the Worlds, but he's up alongside some very strong competition. Attention. Germany's Karl Schultz beat him to that podium at the Europeans, where Schultz got the bronze. But we're underway, so these two, they were 3rd and 4th at the Europeans this summer. That means that they were in the B final at the Europeans, where there was the medal up for grabs. Schultz went home with it, but now we find themselves alongside each other again here at the World Championships, fighting for a place into the last 8. Powerful athlete, Karl Schultz. They're level passing the first turning point. Oh, a bit of a boat stopping clash with the boy there, but I think he's taking the more aggressive line, is Schultz for Germany. The Portuguese athlete Rodrigues Barbosa, slightly wide rounding the first turning point, means that he's going to have a longer distance to row if he puts in a big S-bend passing these two turning points. Still level passing the second turning point, so we'll see how they handle the turn at the far end. You can see that the oncoming waves just pushing their bows round towards the south of the course. Quite a measured turn there for Carl Schultz. Fast nonetheless, he's made it just ever so slightly faster round than the Portuguese athlete, but the Portuguese athlete managing to take the first stroke to try and get his boat back up to speed. It's tough work, this return leg, because now they're coming into the oncoming wind, which is moving offshore from the land. Very different to the wind that we've experienced through the early part of this week. At some point later this morning, it will change direction. Portuguese athlete out in front here then, Claudia Rodrigues Barbosa. Not by much. We'll see what the waves do to their last 50 meters. That's the tricky part, where the boats just get absolutely stuck trying to make it onto the beach. And I think the Portuguese athlete just getting a little bit of a ride on a wave there, although now his bow held up on the crest of the preceding wave. It's going to come down to the beach sprint. They're making landfall at the same time, both directly in front of their flags. Schultz is out first. It's the sprint up the beach. They're absolutely level. Oh, a little bit of a trip for Schultz. I think Schultz is just going to get there first, not necessarily needing to dive. That could have been such a close one. So it's a repeat of the Europeans. Carl Schultz taking the win there for Germany and progressing on with a 2:38.96 into the last 8 and the quarterfinals. Great race though from Rodrigues Barbosa, here representing Portugal in the pre-quarterfinals, the last 16 for the men's solo. Just one race remains. Mohamed Tayeb for Tunisia alongside Marcus Delamata of Australia. Look at this, absolutely level all the way down the course. These two, Carl Schultz managing to make it a repeat of the Europeans B final, where he got the bronze medal ahead of Rodrigues Barbosa of Portugal. It looked for a moment though as though Rodrigues Barbosa would take the win, but it all came down to that beach landing. Schultz managing to get his feet on terra firma first, earning him progression through to the quarters. Marcus Delamata of Australia. We had his mixed doubles partner Lucy Hope here in the commentary booth with me yesterday. Absolute pleasure hearing how they've been getting their training going. And this man, Mohamed Tayeb for Tunisia, a great athlete, well versed in the coastal discipline. Marcus, a relatively new entrant to coastal racing. So we'll see how this one turns out. Mohamed Tayeb, the gold medalist from the African Beach Games earlier on this year. Silver medalist in the solo from 2022 to Chris Back, who took the gold in Saundersfoot, Wales, Great Britain. Now finding himself lining up alongside the Australian, the Oceania champion in the solo, and the mixed double with Lucy Hope. So they're both continental champions in the solo. And this is what we like to see. Continental champions from their respective nations now battling it out for progression into the quarterfinals here. Such a deep and strong field where we've got the returning world champions from the last 3 years in Miramon Quiroga, Fikara and Back. Mohamed Tayeb, silver medal to Back last year in Saundersfoot, so he is perhaps the favourite from this race to get through, but I'm sure Marcus Delamata will be trying to put paid to that reputation. Not much separating them coming up to the turning point, so a good clean start for both of these athletes. Delamata with a better boat speed there. That's what we're frequently seeing in lane 2, the faster start on the way out, just able to keep his bow that little bit more level But I think now the Tunisian's going to get to the second turning point first. They're drawing level now as we see the Aussie athlete move into the lead. So let's see how they handle this turning point. Tayeb giving it absolutely everything. This is just a 500-meter race, which means it's an absolute max effort race from start to finish. Delamata has made the best of the outbound leg. Let's see how he handles the turn. He's gone perhaps a little bit wide approaching the buoy. That means he's going to have more work to do to get all the way around it. Tayeb very, very tight on the way around, not clattering it at all, and he's on the crest of that wave. If he can stick on it, he might get a little bit of a boost from it. Tayeb now taking the lead ahead of Delamata, so we'll see how they handle this return leg. I think Delamata just benefiting from that wave that he's riding there. They're on the same wave, but because it's coming in at a diagonal, Tayeb just a little bit behind Delamata. Both of them benefiting a little bit from this wave. Nice to see these waves moving at a slightly faster speed than they were yesterday. So the sets coming through a little bit quicker today than they were yesterday, which means that they're not bogging down the boats quite as much as they did yesterday. Delamata's got a couple of lengths advantage now, though. I think the Tunisian just falling off the back of that roller. So Delamata with the advantage coming into landfall now. Let's see how he handles the exit. Can he get a clean exit? And I think this could be upset for Tayeb. Oh, he's gotten out of the boat in quite deep water and a little bit relaxed in his approach, getting onto the beach. Now having to think twice about how he handles this sprint up the beach. If only we could see where Tayeb is. He looks pretty confident, Delamata. He's taken the win. A great result for him there. For Delamata, I mean, ahead of Tayeb, taking second place. A 2:37 for Marcus Delamata, progressing on to the last 8. Mohamed Tayeb, a great race nonetheless, and perhaps a shock and surprise result for many that would have expected the silver medalist from last year to progress into the last 8. But such is beach sprint racing. So many things can go wrong for you despite having your best race. If the waves aren't the way you would have hoped, despite a max effort sprint, if you're held up on the wrong side of a wave, that is race over. So in a moment, we're going to jump down to that start line where we've got Neve Hayes, our course commentator, who's going to have a catch-up with Marcus Delamata.
I'm here with Marcus Delamata of Australia, just winning the knockout round there. You've booked a spot into the quarter-final. Were you expecting it?
Oh, I had plenty of confidence coming in, knowing that if I pulled hard in that middle of the... got up that turn quick and came back fast, had every opportunity. Really good sculler, did really well last year, but no one knew I was coming into this, which was also a blessing in disguise.
Absolutely. Now, you decided to jump out of the boat a little early. You went for a little bit of a swim. Was that a tactical move?
No. Yeah, I think I felt my oars getting trapped on the sand. I thought, do I go? I knew I had enough of a lead that if I got out clean enough, I was going to get him. So yeah, happy with the result and be back this afternoon.
Amazing work, well done. Delighted to see you going on to the next round. I know you told me the other day you don't like big waves, so let's see if it stays pretty calm for you.
We'll see how we go, but thank you very much.
Great to hear from Marcus Delamata. Good result for him and good result for Australia, him progressing into the last 8. We'll look forward to his race later on this afternoon, where we'll see him racing in the solo for Australia in the last 8 in the quarterfinals. See the determination on Mohamed Tayeb's face there. He had a great rounding of that far turning point, but just the better boat speed for Delamata on the return leg. Look at this exit for Delamata, quite a shock exit for him. I think he knew he had the distance though to not have to panic making his way up the beach. See Mark Cavell there, our resident DJ, making sure that everybody here is having a good time and creating that awesome vibe that you'd expect to find at beach sprint racing. So we've got a little bit of a break now before the next race. The next race off at 11 o'clock as we get into the last 16 for the women's solo. So lots to look forward to in this last 16, and then all that will remain after these pre-quarterfinals are finals for the PR3 Mixed double, and then the last 8 of the under-19 doubles for the men, women, and mixed, and then the senior men's solo and women's solo. We're going to pop back down, though, to the start line, where we've got Neve again.
Now, I'm here with Mohamed Taib of Tunisia. You just missed out on a spot in the quarterfinal. You were on the podium last year. You must be heartbroken.
Yeah, that's true, but it's part of sport, you know. In beach rowing, we can't control some stuff. In the back way, I stuck between two waves. I did my best, but yeah, congratulations for Australia, and see you next year.
Oh, I love it, love it. There'll be a comeback next year. Now, going into it, there was only 0.01 of a second between you and Australia in the time trial. So did you know it was going to be that close?
Yeah, I saw the time trial, but in the time trial I did some mistakes, 3 or 4. So it was for me, it's about trying to find solution for the mistake that I did in the time trial. And it was the reason marriage for better performance. But yeah, today, as I said, it was for not for just me and Australia, because this had 0.1 millisecond, but it was for all the race a little bit hard. But I don't know if they noted that the line number 1 is a little bit faster than the line number 2, but it's part of sport.
Now, does a result like this, does this drive you on now for next year? Or is it a bit more disappointing? Or does it give you more encouragement now to train harder, to work harder for the coming year?
It's hard to say now, but for me it's part of the sport, so it made me stronger. You know, they said there's something that don't break you, make you stronger, or something like that. So yeah, that's make me stronger, not just in the sport, in the life. And yeah, so I will do my best, have some time to be in the single or the double, I don't know, next year. But for sure I will be here next year.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for chatting to us. Work hard now over the next year, and I'm sure we'll see you back here next year at the finals.
Great to hear from both of the athletes in that last of the last 16 pre-quarterfinal races for the men's solo. Got a bit of a break now until we get into the last 16 for the women's solo, the last of the pre-quarterfinal races and events, because all we've got this afternoon to look forward to are the finals for the PR3 Mixed double, and then we're into the last 8 sets of races for the under-19 doubles and the men's and women's solo. So we're going to have a bit of a break now. We'll be back with you just a couple of minutes before 11, where we've got the first of the 8 pre-quarterfinal races for the women's solo.
Ripartiremo con il singolo femminile alle ore 11:00. Mi raccomando, restate con noi.
How's your kit?
the races. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to start again for the women's solo on the agenda starting at 11 o'clock. Signore e signori, siamo a poco meno di 3 minuti dalla partenza ufficiale. Riprendete posto sulle tribune. Così parte. Please take a seat. Great drum stands here on the beach. We are about to start with the women's solo. Stay with us.
Just a couple of minutes away now from the last 16, or the pre-quarterfinal races for the women's solo up next. These are the last of the last 16, or pre-quarterfinal races, before we're into finals, semi-finals and quarters for the rest of the day. Lots to look forward to. Lining up in this first race then, Janneke van der Meulen for the Netherlands and Italy's Maria Condurso. Going to be a hotly contested race, this one. Janneke van der Meulen, tall Dutch athlete here. No stranger to beach sprint and coastal racing. She's taken part every year for the past few. Supported by her husband, Mitchell Steinman, who'll be doing some of the boat handling. You can see the boats being carried down to the water's edge. Van der Meulen, silver medalist at the Europeans earlier this summer for the beach sprints. Lining up alongside the bronze medalist here, Maria Condurso, for Italy. So these two eager to get into the next round. Only one of them will be in contention for the medals, though, because we see the last 16 athletes whittled down to the last 8 based on this knockout round of pre-quarterfinals. Any moment now, they'll be under starters' orders. There we go. The sprint is on. Condurso not waiting around whatsoever. The fastest sprint to the Italian. Van der Meulen trying to keep up, but it's the Italian who gets to her boat first. Slightly hesitant entry, but she's going to take her first stroke here. Mitchell Steinman on the right, husband of Janneke van der Meulen, who's racing here. Hugely experienced, tall Dutch athlete. She'll be relying on her length and strength to get that boat moving. She draws back level with the Italian approaching the first turning point. She's got the better boat speed. See how they handle this pivot round to get onto the correct side of the second turning point now. Maria Condurso, coached by Franco Cataneo. You can see that the boat's pivoting all over the place here. The goal being to try and keep it level, because each bounce just takes the edge off their speed. But the Dutch athlete managing to keep that boat with the slightly better boat speed despite the rolling waves coming in. Now moving up towards the far turning point. Just a very measured approach from Van der Meulen, coached by Bjorn van den Ende, who'll be joining me in the current commentary box just after lunch today. As I say, Van der Meulen, silver medalist at the Europeans, coached by Olympian Bjorn van den Ende. She's out in front, making the better of this turning point at the far end of the course. And it's a great return leg start for her already. A couple of lengths up of clear water over Conderso. So I think we might see it hard pushed for the Italian to get back into contact, although just as I say that, she's got her stern up on a wave. Easiest way to tell from these images if the stern is up by looking at where the bow is, and if the bow is down or perhaps buried in a wave, as long as it's not caught in the wave in front, that usually means they're getting a bit of a boost, and that's what we're seeing in the boat speeds there on the graphic. You can see that there's a little bit of a boost for the Italian. Might not be enough though. You can see there's still a couple of lengths clear water to the fast-moving Dutch woman. Janneke van der Meulen's going to make onto the beach first, and I think that's going to close the door on any opportunity for Maria Conderso to progress through to the quarterfinals from this race. Oh, you can see van der Meulen's been bogged down coming onto the beach. It slows down so much. She could rely on her leg length and get out in the deeper water. She doesn't choose to do that, but she's got enough of an advantage here to make it up the beach ahead of Conderso. I think pretty safe for the win in this first of our women's solos pre-quarterfinal races. The win, therefore, to van der Meulen and 2:52. So that's the benchmark we look to now as we progress on. Such a tall athlete she is. That means she's got great length out there on the water. She's the first one to secure her place in to the quarterfinals. Grandstands filling up here. You can see that the crowd's spilling out onto the beach to make sure they've got a good sight of the competition. And an awesome finish funnel. The infrastructure that's been set up here in Barletta, top class. And the atmosphere being created by Luca Brogini, the local Italian commentator. Stunning conditions here in Barletta. You can see that the waves not as spiky as they'll be later on this afternoon. Conditions expected to get a lot choppier as the wind pivots round to move offshore later on this afternoon. That's exactly what we've seen for the last couple of days of racing, so we can look forward to those conditions hopefully later on this afternoon, because that really puts the test to these athletes' coastal expertise and skill. Next up then, it's the second of the pre-quarterfinals. Elodie Rivera-Scaramuzzino for France alongside Chiara Halama of Austria. Boats now in the water. Boat handler Yuri Suchak. Images emerged yesterday of him saving a kitten, or trying to save a kitten that was trapped up a tree. Not much that that man can't do. He's now here boat handling for Chiara Halama. An immense Austrian athlete, I think perhaps the favorite in this race. Here we go, Rivera-Scaramuzzino, perhaps the quicker on the land, although just as I say that, Halama accelerates and they're going to reach their boats at the same time. A measured entry to the boat for Halama, making sure she gets that right. But it's Rivera-Scaramuzzino who's the faster out of the blocks. Let's see how they get going then. So we've got Halama was 12th in the first time trial to Rivera-Scaramuzzino. Coming past the next turning point. Let's see how they get on here. Rivera-Scaramuzzino second at the first of the time trials to van der Meulen, who we saw race just in the previous race. So work to do for Chiara Halama here, who's struggling to get back on terms. I think Rivera-Scaramuzzino just had such a quick start. We'll see how she comes around this turning point, having to turn her bows into the wave direction. Tricky to do. She does it expertly. Once she gets it around there, the waves then help push it around, so she's had a very, very quick rounding of that buoy. Halama a little bit long. I think this could be the French women's race now. I mean, averting any kind of disaster on this return leg. She's certainly got the coastal experience. You can see slightly shorter in the stroke approach, going for that higher rating rather than the length. Chiara Halma trying to follow suit. She's only really going half slide, opting for that higher rate of sculling. But that is an ocean of clear water to try and close in for Chiara Halma. And the waves not looking too tricky this morning here in Barletta. I think the Rivera Scaramucino will be safe for hitting the beach first. In previous years, we've seen some really huge breakers that makes that landing so tricky, and you've got to be so gutsy and brave to go full tilt into the beach landing. Now the question is, at which point does she decide to exit? I think it's going to be when she hits the sand. There we have it. A good safe exit for Rivera Scaramucino. She's going to take the win in this second of the pre-quarterfinal races for the women's solo. Big smile on her face. And she takes the win there in a 2:57.45. So 5 seconds slower than Van der Meulen, which follows the form of the time trial that they were both in on Friday. Beautiful result for the French woman. She was European champion in the solo earlier this summer. So Halma had her work cut out for her. She had a lower back injury earlier this year in February, so she's been trying to deal with that. The mathematician and finance student not quite managing to cope with the speed of the European champion, Rivera Scaramucino. So I think this went according to the form book. Rivera Scaramucino will progress on to the quarterfinals. So it's another USA-Canada lineup in the next race. We saw Chris Back racing against Aubrey Oldham earlier. Chris Back taking the win. Now we've got Christine Carvalho for the USA alongside Sarah Pigeon for Canada. Sarah Pigeon, the mixed doubles partner of Aubrey Oldham. Christine Carvalho, the mixed doubles partner of Corey Rogers, who had joined me in the commentary booth earlier on this morning. Coached by Mark Aurea, the well-loved USA coach. And here we have Sarah Pigeon, coached by Michelle Boss. This is certainly a race to watch. Here we go then, the sprint is on. Carvalho like a rocket down the beach. Such a fast athlete on the land. And she gets to her boat really quickly there. Let's see how they handle this push out onto the water. Carvalho a couple of strokes in already. Pigeon getting a great big shunt from Aubrey Oldham, who's now boat handling for her. Couple of waves coming through, don't cause any upset for Pigeon. Little check for Christine, just to make sure she's on the correct side of that first pencil buoy. Holding 2 lengths up on Pigeon in this early stage of the race. Look at this though, it's tough to choose the better boat speed. I think Carvalho now making the best of it through these rollers coming through. She's an immense athlete. She'd been racing with Oxford University last year. Now back in the States, and she's been part of the squad that was training in Donneratico with the Kiwis earlier on, just a couple of weeks ago this summer. And she's building her margin out in front, pulling away from Sarah Pigeon up towards the turning point. So Christine Carvalho, current leader, America's championship winner in the mixed double earlier on this summer. 3rd place in 2021 in Oeiras in Portugal when she was racing in the mixed coxed quad. So a great performance from her thus far. Sarah Pigeon was the silver medalist in the mixed double at the America's Cup to Christine and Corey. Now on this return leg, just making sure she doesn't hammer into that buoy. Christine Carvalho continuing to extend her lead, now up to nearly 40 meters over Pigeon. Pigeon's got a wave here though. She's surfing in on this, and you can see the boat speed difference now as Sarah Pigeon rides the crest of that wave, closing in rapidly. Christine's boat speed dropping as she's on the wrong side of that roller, so we could see it tighten up into the shore. I think that lead just too much for Sarah Pigeon to close in on in the last 50 or so meters of the C segment. And that means that Christine Carvalho, I think, is going to progress on. She's going to make it onto the beach and feet down first. A great race for her. Such a fast start. She's managed to hold that lead all the way down the course. There goes Christine Carvalho. She's going to win this pre-quarterfinal race for the USA and progress on to the quarterfinals later on this afternoon. Christine Carvalho with a 2:51 flat. She's pleased with that outcome. Sarah Pigeon then coming in for second place in this race. She's had a good tournament thus far. Time trial and then here in the pre-quarterfinals. And it's essentially a repeat of the mixed doubles result. But Sarah Pigeon in second, Christine Carvalho therefore progressing on to the next round. Here's a bit of a recap of that race. Carvalho so quick down the sand. Sarah Pigeon a length or so behind, just getting off the beach. But Carvalho's speed on the water really paying off, having been part of the USA squad for a couple of years. And, ooh, a little bit of tricky rounding of that second turning point. Part of a great training program, Christine Carvalho has paid off here on the water, coming in to take the win. Next up then, this is Claire Jameson for Great Britain. Enjoying this beach vibe. She's up alongside Alzbeta Zavadilova for Czechia. Claire Jameson fourth in the first of the time trials behind Christine Carvalho. She's therefore lining up alongside Czechia, where we saw Zavadilova place 19th in the time trial. So Jameson perhaps the favourite in this race, but it can all change out there on the water. There we have it, the buzzer goes. Claire Jameson making her way down the beach, perhaps that little bit quicker than the Czechia athlete. Jameson was silver medalist in the mixed double last year in Saundersfoot. Now finding herself this year in the solo. But it's the Czechia athlete who's making the best of this start. Very quick for Zavadilova, the biology university student. She does a lot of cross training between cycling and hiking. She's got the better of the starts ahead of Jameson. Let's see what Jameson does now in this outbound leg. She was the faster from the time trials by a significant amount. And look at this boat speed. She's rocketing into the lead now ahead of the Czechia athlete. A few big bouncers, not causing an issue for her. Eyes still fixed on her support staff on the beach to make sure that she's navigating the right way around this second turning point. She's turned a length deficit into a length advantage out in front of the Czechia athlete, Zavadilova. It's a great start for the 29-year-old Claire Jameson. Coming up to the turning point, I think this is going as you'd have expected from the form book based on the time trials. Taking that turn early, making sure she doesn't go too long. This is what you'd expect to see from all of these athletes. It's tricky to get the timing right. A lot of them fearful that if they start too early, they'll crash into the buoy. So that's where experience and practice pays off. This is the fourth of the pre-quarterfinal races for the women's solo, and Claire Jamieson now starting to run away with it. She's got a few lengths clear water over Zavadlivo. And let's see how she comes into the beach. You can see that Zavadilova has now caught a wave, although now she's fallen off the back of it. She couldn't quite stay on it, so that's hammered her boat speed. And it's Jamieson's turn to ride a wave in towards the beach. So important that you practice getting those few strokes in to just chip your boat forwards and surf the wave. A couple of hard strokes can pay off when you can take a little bit of a relaxed approach when you know that you're coasting and you can feel the surf under you. So Claire Jamieson looking good for the win here. She's coming into the beach. Get a little bit of a push as she crests over that tiny little wave. You really do feel it in these coastal boats. And that's where the expertise and skill and practice comes in, using the waves to your advantage. Claire Jamieson not too pushed on her way up the beach here. She'll need to conserve some of that energy because later on this afternoon we have the last 8 races. It's called the last 8 not because there's 8 races, but it's the last 8 athletes going through the quarterfinals, and we'll see the women's from 5 o'clock this afternoon, the last boat category of the day. Alzbeta Zavadilova for Czechia coming in at 3:03, but Jamieson with a 2:51. So 1 second quicker than the Dutch woman. Oh, the first race she matched, though, Christine Cavallio's time from the previous pre-quarter. So that's going to be interesting to watch. I think Cavallio perhaps a little bit more pushed than Jamieson was in their respective pre-quarterfinal races. Now we'll see the recap of this start. Jamieson that little bit quicker down to the boat, but the Czechia athlete making the better of the start. All turned around though on that outbound leg. Jamieson just making that better boat speed through those rolling waves and the bouncing as you cross each one. And on the return leg, she just managed to ride a few waves more than Zavadilova did. And we look now to the next one, the 5th of the 8 pre-quarters. Monica Dukarska for Ireland, doubling up from the Coxed quad that we saw her racing in yesterday. Now here in the women's solo. An immense athlete. We see her training and racing in the flat water edition of this sport too. And here is Małgorzata Kroll for Poland. Coached by Patrick Czerkolski. See how she gets on here today. Quite a formidable athlete to be up against, Dukarska is. She's a bronze medalist from the Europeans in the solo. Małgorzata Kroll, 30 years of age. Here representing Poland. Quite a formidable pairing here. We'll see how they get on down this course. The Irish athlete 5th in the time trials. Sprinting down the beach. What a great start for Monica Dukarska. She's going to get to that boat first. They've gone for a deep start there, just above knee height, using her height to her advantage to get that little bit further down the water, because of course you do run faster than you can row. So if you're able to canter over the waves and into that slightly deeper water and it not impedes you getting into the boat, then every meter counts. Małgorzata Kroll keeping terms though with this Irish athlete. Pretty much level coming up towards the second turning point. And you can just see the boat speed shifting around every time they bounce over one of those waves. Because each time they come over the crest, their bow then dives into the next wave and it just takes the speed down, losing them that momentum. So this is where timing your stroke to the rhythm of the waves so crucial. Look at Dukarska, such an aggressive and brave line. All it takes is a wave coming in on the wrong diagonal angle to push your bow the wrong side and you end up with a 30-second penalty. Dukarska now starting to put her strength to good use here, pulling up ahead of Małgorzata Kroll of Poland. Turning point time. Let's see how they handle this. Aggressive approach from Dukarska, hammering in the blade, then realizing she was a little bit far away from the turning point, so taking an extra stroke. She's now a length and a half up on Kroll coming away from the turning point. Slightly off on an angle there. She'll want to correct for that. It's quite tricky in that lane to make sure that you're navigating the straightest line back towards the beach. She's got a couple of lengths up on the Polish athlete now on this return leg. Slightly harder to get your bearings in the Irish women's lane when you come around that turning point, because you've only got one set of boys on your right-hand side to align against, whereas when you come around on the other lane, you can line up between all the boys and race down a channel of boys back to the beach. But what we're seeing today, though, is that the waves on this side for the Irish women haven't been bogging down the boats in this lane quite as much as they have in the other, and that's paid off. So there's advantages and disadvantages to each lane. Slightly easier navigation in the other lane, slightly easier wave sets we're seeing on this side, which is surprising because the beach being so consistent all the way along, the wave formations you'd expect to be absolutely the same. Perhaps it's just coincidence, but Dukarska onto the beach first, not by much because Kroll is on the other side. I think she's got just enough of a lead to be able to confidently jog the last few meters. She needs to be aware, though, because she could get caught napping. Not so. Monica Dukarska takes the win in a 2:59. So a great race for her. 7 seconds behind Van der Merlen in the first of the races. Christine Cavallio and Claire Jameson, the fastest we've seen in the women's solo, though, with 2:51s. So we'll see what that spells for later on when we get to the last 8 at 5 o'clock this afternoon. The crowd's really starting to pack out the beach here. Good to see so many local supporters from in and around Barletta. It's the weekend here, so they've all come down to watch what's going on. Here's that recap of the race, though. Monica Dukarska, Malgorzata Kroll. Dukarska just that little bit quicker down to her boat and making good use of it off the start with her boat handler support. So hard getting that rounding of the far turning point right. And Dukarska taking the win and progressing on to the quarterfinals. Next up then, here is Katja Fuhrmann of Germany in lane 2. She's lining up alongside Tiila Maria Rautala for Finland. The Finnish athlete came 6th in the first time trial, ahead of Germany, who was in 14th place. So Finnish athlete perhaps the favorite in this side-by-side race. There we go. Oh, a little bit of a hesitant start there for Germany. That's the important thing. The Finnish athlete saw the flag drop and we're underway, and she got down to the boat a lot more quickly than the German athlete. That moment of hesitation, I believe they're going to be called back in. I'm just hearing, I believe that was a false start. Yeah, there's the red flag. I think that'll be a false start to Tiila Maria Rautala. That's why we saw the hesitation from Fuhrmann, because she saw Rautala jump forwards. It's a tricky one, this. Maybe we'll get a replay of it in just a moment, but Rautala, the Finnish athlete, I think, triggering that false start. Here's the slow-mo. Ah, well, this is interesting. The flag went down and the Finnish athlete went for it. So I wonder if, when the umpires rewatch that replay, from my perspective, that looked absolutely fine. When the flag went down, she went. The buzzer was delayed, and it caused some hesitation, but you couldn't see the flag in the picture, but you could see its shadow. And it certainly did drop as Rautala went, so she was just on it. I'll tell you what, I'll find out over lunchtime what happened there, because it certainly looked fine from my perspective. But we will trust in the umpires, because they have the best view. We can see the flag drop. There's the flag drop in the shadow. You can see that flag drop in the shadow, and Rautala goes for it. As far as I'm concerned, that's a good, clean start. But we'll find out later what the decision was that triggered the false start. Fuhrmann was hesitant because I think there was a delay to the buzzer, but I believe the rules are that when the flag drops, you may go, even if there's a delay to the buzzer. Tricky technical moment that needs to be considered because Furman wasn't looking at the flag. Rautala was. That's the advice that most coaches give, is look up at that flag because you're allowed to go on the flag. Furman was waiting for the buzzer, and that's why she was delayed and saw Rautala launch forward before hearing the buzzer, slightly confused, therefore hesitant, and made it down to her boat that little bit slower. But this is why you look for the flag. So we'll find out from the umpires shortly. I'm sure they're talking about it right now, and it will be another minute before we get the restart because the boat handlers will have to turn the boats around, reset them, tip any water out because they don't want any water in that may have made its way in from the first few strokes. And then we'll be underway again. So the Finnish athlete did a 3:08 in her time trial compared to the German athlete 3:15.
Ladies and gentlemen, the commission is now checking if there was a false start.
So we're hearing that the commission are checking about whether that was a false start or not. We'll wonder why they stopped the race if it wasn't. And that advantage to Rautala will have been stripped from her, despite her having followed the rules if it's determined that she hadn't jumped the gun. So we'll see. But look at Mark Cavall there on the right, and that's Mark Isaacs on the left, the producer. These two setting a cracking environment here in the Finnish funnel. The crowd been loving it. We had Luca Bragini out there in the middle of the funnel yesterday, organising Mexican waves and all sorts here. This beach vibe in our beach sprint variation of rowing. Fast, growing, so many new entrants to the sport and so many new nations taking part. We've got Australia here for the first time, Belgium, Croatia, Cyprus, Puerto Rico, South Africa, Turkey, Ukraine. Lots of new nations taking part in this beach sprint variation. And of course, with beach sprints, we were hearing from Vincent Gaillard yesterday, the executive director of World Rowing, how new nations can take part. We're hearing there from Luca Bragini, it was not a false start. And we'll start it again. So disappointing to hear that. And I'm sure the Finnish will feel a little bit bitter about that race being stopped, and rightly so, frankly, because Maria Rautala had an amazing start. She had a great advantage as a result, and it got called back in, but she is the favourite in this race nonetheless. So as long as she can repeat her previous start and her time trial, she is the favourite, theoretically, to progress on to the last 8. So boats being put onto the water, and at any moment now they'll be called to attention. There we go. Flag and buzzer a little bit more in unison today, but look how fast Maria Rautala is. An absolute rocket down the beach. Katja Furman for Germany doing her best to keep up, but it's going to be Rautala into the boat first, and so quick getting her feet in. She's taken the approach that we've often seen from the athletes. Just get one foot into the chute quickly, take a stroke, and worry about getting the second one in as you're going. You've got time, but just getting those first few strokes in can make the difference. And here we have Rautala already a length up on Furman, passing the first turning point. She's gone quite wide, though, and you can see how much she's having to correct over to the other side to get past the second turning point. That's going to cost her, and we'll see what happens now coming towards the second turning point. Furman starting to build boat speed now. This is great boat speed for the German athlete. A little bit of a bounce there, though. Just taking the shine off her speed means that they're now pretty much level coming up to this turning point. In fact, no. Rautala, oh, look at that aggressive line. That's what we like to see. Hammering the boy with her rigger. That is exactly what you need to be doing when it's a close-cut race. All or nothing. You absolutely go for it, or you don't. She's gone for it, and it's helped her earn what is now looking like 2.5 lengths up on the German athlete coming towards the turning point. Maria Rautala for Finland now, coming around the point. Is she going to go for the aggressive stop? She does. Another stroke because she took it quite wide. And she's around Toot Sweet on her way back now. 2 lengths. It was a good turn for Katja Furman of Germany. She might have closed in, but she's off on an angle now, so this is the tricky thing about lane 2. It's tough to get that navigation right and make sure you're pointing directly back to the beach and not taking a big wide arc around the course. Another aggressive line from the Finnish athlete. Such brave racing for her. Absolutely going for it. She's got the better boat speed, so I think she's riding a wave here. As we also see Furman get herself onto a wave, and that's why she's got the better boat speed now. She's just getting that boost from a nice rolling wave in towards the beach, but I think the Finnish athletes lead just too much to cope with. We're going to see Tilla-Maria Rautala make landfall ahead of Katja Furman of Germany. Look at this, she catches another wave. Super stuff for the Finnish athlete. I think this is going according to the form book. She's going to get onto the beach first and certain for a victory. A great outcome for her despite the turbulence of the previous attempted start. She's happy with this result. She doesn't need to put all of her energy into this because she's got the last 8 to look forward to this afternoon with the quarterfinals from 5 o'clock. So Tilla-Maria Rautala taking the win. 2:58.81. Well, that'll have been a tiring start to their day, doing 2 full starts because they had to both times sprint down to the beach and put in those really exhausting first few strokes that gets the boat up to speed through the oncoming waves. But the outcome, I think, is what it would have been regardless. So Rautala progressing on to the quarterfinals. There's the recap of that restart. Rautala so quick across the sand. We were hearing yesterday from Annalie Duncombe in the under-19 women's double for the USA how the sand is just perfect for running on. It's slightly more compacted than some of the soft sand beaches that we've raced at, where you see the sand sort of spitting out from under your feet. Here you can get purchase on it, and it's a little bit damp in the morning. You can get really good traction. Now that was the 6th of the 8 pre-quarterfinals. 7th one up now. Patricia Batista for Portugal in lane 1, and Martina Kaitz for Croatia in lane 2. Boats now being called into the water. See how they get on now. The Portuguese athlete 7th in the time trials, the Croatian 9th. So based on the time, there are only 3 seconds separating them in the time trials. So this is going to be quite a closely contested race. Here we go then. The Portuguese athlete was 3 seconds quicker in the time trials. They're level coming down to their boats. Not much separating them at all. See how they handle the entry. It's foot in the hull for the Portuguese, bottom on the seat and then the feet in. We see so many different approaches to that. It's worked for her though. A few waves just slowing down Kites for Croatia. It's allowed the Portuguese athlete Batista to get out in front. Batista, the senior at 30 years of age, to Kites at 20 years of age. So a bit more experience in the Portuguese boat, going over these rollers. So tough to keep the boat speed up because each time you hit a wave, you slow right down, which makes the next stroke an exhausting strength-based stroke, which is why we see so many athletes opting for the half slide and slightly higher rating to just keep things ticking over rather than each one being a real strength effort that just burns out the muscles. Now coming up towards the turning point, Batista with at least 2 lengths lead here. Let's see how Batista handles this turning point. Last couple of strokes. This is Martina Kaitz of Croatia, coached by Dean Girotto. Batista round first. I think that's looking like a pretty safe rounding there. She's got the advantage. Can she catch herself a wave on this return leg, or indeed can Kites to try and close down this lead? I think she's on a roller just there. She does. She's caught a wave and is closing in on the lead of Batista. Starting to get overlap now. You can see the Croatian up there, nearly 14 kilometers an hour. She's just falling off the back of that roller, and I think it's now going to give a bit of a push to Batista to pull her away again. Unless she gets bogged down between those two waves, it looks as though Batista's just caught between two waves. No, she's just still taking the advantage of that roller behind her. So I think the margin growing significantly now as she makes her way back towards the beach. Last few strokes, she's gone quite wide towards the grandstand. She might have that much longer of a run to make. You can see where she's landing, almost in the boat park area. So she's going to have a run on her hands, but she's got a length of advantage making it onto the beach. Let's see how she handles this exit. Clean exit. Oh, no, I spoke too soon. Back on her feet. I think she's got the advantage just coming up the beach. For a moment there, it looked like she'd gone very wide. We've seen that happen quite a lot on that return navigation. Tricky stuff to get right, and if you go too wide, even if you're ahead, you can lose it in that sprint. Not much separating those two across the line in the end, but Patricia Batista with a 2:53, progressing on to the last 8, and her place in the quarterfinal confirmed. We'll see what that margin was. It was only a couple of seconds in the end. Great sportsmanship from Martina Kites of Croatia, congratulating. Just under 3 seconds. Look at that. That was a close race. It was 3 seconds in their time trial as well. So pretty much a carbon copy of their previous round. Just one race remaining in this contest of the last 16 for the women's solo. Before we're into the first finals of the day for the PR3 Mixed doubles. Here's that replay. Pretty much level going off the start. I think Kite's just catching a few awkward waves. Set her behind by about a length in that first 50 meters on the water. But Batista just taking better advantage of the rolling waves on the return leg. In the end, though, it was just 3 seconds, so a good navigation from the Portuguese athlete. This is Celia Miguel Gomez of Spain. She's lining up alongside Colleen Cossin for Monaco. One thing you love about the beach sprint variation of this sport is that they all help each other out. Yuri Suchak, the Austrian who we saw earlier boat handling for Chiara Halama, is down there again, boat handling for the Monegascan, Colleen Cossin now. There we go, good quick start. All eyes will be on the Spaniard because we so often see Spain with rapid starts. Spain were 8th in the first time trial, the Monegascan 15th. And in the second time, the Monegascan won that second time trial. But let's see how they get underway. Spain so quick. It's always unbelievable how they just get their boats up to speed so quickly. Colleen Cossin no different. But just astern by about a length of the Spaniard. In fact, less than that. You can see by the GPS markers, it's half a length or so coming up towards the second turning point already. Colleen Cossin racing here for Monaco, 25 years of age. And we've got Celia Miguel Gomez, world champion in the mixed coxed quad last year and the year before. So she now finds herself here in the women's solo. So experienced in the coastal rowing, Celia Miguel Gomez, coached by Jose Lopez Romero. She's managed to pull out to nearly 2 lengths up on Cossin coming around the turning point. Miguel Gomez taking it very tight. That's what you expect to see from an athlete experienced as this. Slightly wider for Cossin. So she's got her work to do now on this return leg. Let's see who can make the better of these rolling waves coming back in. I keep talking about it because it just makes such a big difference if you can get yourself on the right side of one. Hard work here for Kozan. I think she's just on the crest of a wave there. Can she get ahead of it to take advantage of its speed? But Celia Miguel Gomez of Spain pulling away. This is a great race for her. She's on the crest of that wave, and she's making sure she stays on it. This is where your experience counts. A couple of quick strokes, changing the rating, changing where you put the emphasis of the stroke, changing how you adjust course, making sure you use the water and you work with it. That's where the expertise and skill from coastal rowing and experience in it really pays off. Colleen Kozan a few lengths behind now. I can't see her managing to close this gap down. Celia Miguel Gomez of Spain's going to make landfall first. Let's see how we see the Spaniard with the exit. No issue whatsoever. She almost took her time there slightly, and that's one of the advantages of being able to look back at the closest competitor, Colleen Kozan. Not feeling too pressured. She doesn't want to pick up an injury by trying to go too quickly out of the boat. And with a 2:55, Celia Miguel Gomez secures the last spot through to the quarterfinals. Colleen Kozan coming in for second place there. She's pleased with that result. The two-time world champion. And let's now hear from Neve. There's the official times. Celia Miguel Gomez almost 10 seconds up on the Monegascan. Now we're going to hear from Celia Miguel Gomez, who's there with Neve Hayes.
Now I'm here with Celia Miguel Gomez of Spain, just after booking your spot into the quarter-final. You can barely breathe here. How was that? It was a race right down to the line.
Yeah, I'm very happy. I don't know what I can say.
So the last 2 years you've been champion in the quad. You're now in the solo. Is it much harder?
Yes, but I don't know. Both are very hard, but in solo is
harder. You have no cocks to navigate for you. You have to do it all yourself.
Yeah. Oh.
So, okay, great. Well, I'm going to let you go. Catch your breath. You have another few races, hopefully, to come today. Well done, and we'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, we now know who's progressing into the quarterfinals for the women's solo. Fantastic set of 8 races for the women's solo, preceded earlier this morning by the 8 races of the men's solo. Here's the highlight of that race. The Spaniards always so quick off the start. Look here, just absolute confidence and trust in her boat handlers for the navigation advice, so she can focus on boat speed and not worry about having to look over her shoulder. There's always some compromise when it comes to looking over your shoulder to check your direction. No matter how much you think you can put the power down, when you look over your shoulder, your body isn't as aligned as it could be when it comes to putting in the power. Next race, then, we're into the first of the finals for today. It's the B final of the PR3, the Power Rowing Category 3 Coastal Mixed Double Sculls. That was Viola Patrignani, who will be in the stroke seat of this mixed double, where she'll run down and join Gianfilippo Mirabile for Italy. They're lined up alongside Turkey. This is Ebru Akinal. Akinal joined by her partner Muharrem Dakin. In fact, I think we might have had a crew change around there. We'll just wait for that confirmation to come through. But it's going to be Italy and Turkey racing in this B final, which means they're racing for medals. Bronze medal up for grabs between these two. 4th place finisher, or 2nd place in this race, will finish 4th in the overall rankings for the PR3 Coastal Mixed Double Sculls. They'll be the only crew going home without a medal. So all to play for here. And shortly straight afterwards, we've got the A final between Australia and Great Britain. So lots to look forward to as we get into the B final and then the A final for the Para Rowing 3 Coastal Mixed Double Sculls. Here Here we go, the crowd getting into it now. DJ Mark Caval with the awesome music. There he is, up there on stage. The crowds here in Barletta have been really getting behind the atmosphere of this beach vibe event. You can see them packing onto the sand. Lots of local school kids and community members helping to make sure that the event runs smoothly. Obviously, they've got all of our thanks. They're there making sure that crowd control works. Security is absolutely on point, and you can almost tell when they're doing a good job because you barely notice them, and it's not right that they shouldn't be noticed because they do such a great job, and that's why we can enjoy this beach vibe event here in Barletta. Just a couple of minutes now until this race gets underway before our lunch break. There's Luca Borgini creating that atmosphere. He is the superstar of rowing commentary in Italy. He's giving them some Italian operatic coaching, clearly, getting the vibe going and making sure that all of the athletes who are racing here today have the crowd at their absolute best. Support really does make a big difference when it comes to these athletes, because these athletes essentially have to go through a max effort sprint that lasts 3 minutes every time they race. And when we get into the quarterfinals shortly for the under-19 men's double, which is after the lunch break, they'll go through their quarterfinal, immediately followed by their semi-final, immediately followed by their final. So they'll do 3 max efforts at around 3 minutes each, all in under 45 minutes. So it's some tough work for them to make sure that they get the recovery in, and that's why interval training is so crucial when it comes to these athletes and their training programs. It's got to get your nerves going that little bit more when you're on the start line and you can see the crowds. They've got to focus on their race strategy though. Boat handlers, and look, there's Luca charging across the field of play, making sure that all of the crowds get involved. There goes the Mexican wave around the finish funnel. Just 1 minute now until we have the start of this race. Boats being carried down to the water's edge. In fact, we're just under 30 seconds to go. Viola Patrignani on the right. Saw her racing in the previous rounds. See how she gets on in her sprint.
Here we are with the final of the PR3 Mixed.
Here we go then, Patrignani for Italy making her way down the beach, and Turkey's Akinal. Fast stuff there for Italy, getting to her boat first. Let's see about a clean entry, and it's good. If it's based anything like the previous round, we'll also see Patrignani doing the sprint up the beach. Mirabile will do his best to get the oars out of the way. Lots of correction required in the Italian boat to make sure they're on course for their turning point as the bigger waves start to roll in as the morning progresses. Good aggressive line for Italy. Not managing to leave Turkey behind. There's still overlap here. In fact, I think it looks as though Turkey now just starting to drop back. A big roller there, just taking the shine off their boat speed. Italy have quite an aggressive line here. Their boat handler advising them to move over a little bit just to be safe. A couple of big bouncers and not ideal. That's opened the door for Turkey to draw level with them. Ebru Akinal in the stroke seat, setting a great rhythm. They move back over on to this side of the course to make sure that they can take that turning point nice and wide. Viola Patrignani looking across, just checking out where they're positioned. And it looks as though the Italians have taken that corner a little bit wider than Turkey. Let's see how they get the boat back up to speed. I think Italy solidifying the lead again now. They've got about a length up on Turkey as they start this return leg. Good angle for Italy. They can maintain that boat speed. Turkey is starting to veer off towards the south. There's a length separating them now, though. Who's going to take advantage of a wave? I think Italy taking a very aggressive line past that turning point. Doesn't cause any upset because they did hit it with the rigger. That's the textbook way of handling that. Not much changing here. I think the water that little bit flatter. No big rollers for either of these crews to take in. I think they happen to be coming in between sets at the moment. Italy the better line. They're right on target for their flag. Turkey a bit off course. They're going to come almost in line with the grandstand. So now let's see how she handles this exit. Viola Patrignani for Italy. She's got a couple of oars she's going to have to jump over, so a little bit of hurdling. Tricky stuff to do. No issue for her, though. She's up on the beach. The sprint is on. We can't see the other athlete. That's the tricky thing with some of the angles. No issue in the end, though. Viola Patrignani takes the win and the bronze medal for Italy. So that's a great result in front of a home crowd. You can hear Luca Brigini. The crowd are delighted with that result. The bronze medal going to Italy's Gianfilippo Mirabili, 55 years of age, and Viola Patrignani, 20 years of age. So quite the combination in the PR3 mixed double scull for Italy. Muharrem Dakin and Ebru Akinal for Turkey. They'll take fourth place overall in the 2023 World Range Beach Sprint Finals rankings. So that was the bronze medal race. Next up, once we have had a look at this recap, we've got the gold medal race. Australia and Great Britain, both of whom will be going home with some metalware. The question will be, what colour will it be? So that's what they've got to race for. Australia will be in lane 1, Great Britain in lane 2. Well, they'll be getting themselves situated at the start. Boats into position. This is Phoebe Robinson for Australia. She'll be running down to join Russell McIntyre, who will already be down at the boat. This is Melissa Shaw for Great Britain. Her partner James Morgan will already be down at their boat.
We've got the A final. What does it mean? Codesivre. Chi vincerà la medaglia d'oro? Chi vincerà la medaglia d'argento? Una storia che si ripete.
Here we go then, the gold medal race, the first gold medal race of our day here on the last day of racing of the 2023 World Range Beach Sprint Finals, Barletta, Italy. It's quick stuff for the Aussie Phoebe Robinson getting to the boat first. Let's see how she handles the entry. Feet going into shoes. The Aussies are out first. They take the first couple of strokes and are moving out nearly half a length up on Great Britain through the first few strokes. Great Britain now facing a barrage of waves. It looks pretty level now as they come up towards the turning point. I think Australia just a little bit out in front. They're both now starting to pivot over to get onto the correct side of the second turning point. Our GPS data says they're level, but we'll see how this turns out as they have to correct over to the other side of the course. Who's going to take the wider arc and cost themselves some distance? Slightly more aggressive line from Great Britain. It could cost them here. They hammer that buoy. That just drops their boat speed slightly, and it's opened the door for Australia to move out into the lead. Not by much. It's about half a length as they come up towards the turning point now. The Aussies out in front, so who's going to take the more aggressive approach to this? This is a very evenly matched competition here for the gold medal. The Aussies getting to that turning point a little bit earlier than the Brits. How are they going to handle this turn? It looks so close. So it looks like it's going to come down to the return leg. I think Great Britain just going a little bit long around that turning point. Now that return leg, here we go. They've got 250 meters in their legs already. So the stamina will be the key question. Looks like Great Britain have caught themselves a wave, and that's pumped their boat speed right up, and they pull up to nearly a length up on Australia coming down this return section. Question is, what are the wave formations going to do to them? Both of these boats as they come into the last 50 meters. That's where we see these boats really all slow down. In fact, here we go. Great Britain have caught themselves on the wrong side of a wave. That's opened the door for the Aussies, who've moved up into the lead now. Nearly half a length up already. It's all turned around in the last 50 meters. This sprint on the beach, you can just see the effort that Great Britain are putting in, but they're on the wrong side of that wave, and it's just hammered their boat speed. And now they hit a buoy, and it's taken them slightly off course. I think Australia, therefore, with the advantage. They're a length up coming into the beach. And we're going to see who's going to be doing the finishing sprint. As we get to the beach, it's Phoebe Robinson out of the water. She's got to climb over a few waves. Is that going to cost her? Both of them are going for it just to be sure. The sprint is absolutely on. Here we go. The sprint's on. I can't believe it. Melissa Shaw for Great Britain. Phoebe Robinson of Australia. It's so difficult. How and who's going to get to the buzzer first? Oh, it looks like it was Phoebe Robinson of Australia. A second up on Great Britain, the tightest of margins. And that will mean that Australia take the gold medal and the World Championship title for the PR3 Mixed Double Sculls here at 2023 Beach Sprint Finals in Barletta. What a close race that was. It all changed in the middle 50 meters. This dive to the buzzer, it can be so easy to miss. But I think Phoebe did the right thing there, trying to hit it with her hand and then make sure she just generally lands on top of the whole thing. No issues with making sure it was depressed properly, the buzzer, and it was by a second. So there's the official result and time. 0.64 of a second separating gold from silver. A very close race. The victors, Australia, over Great Britain. And therefore, Phoebe Robinson, Russell McIntyre, Russell, they are the world champions in the mixed double sculls PR3 here at the 2023 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. We've got Neve Hayes down there at the beach, so let's hear from them.
Double sculls Australia! Mark, how are you feeling right now?
I'm pretty excited. That was a very hard race. Yeah, we just stayed up and just went for it. We went as hard as we could. Yeah.
Amazing sprint down and up the beach there. How are the legs feeling?
I'm not much of a runner, but it was good.
That was amazing. You should have, I don't know if you heard the support from the crowd here from both crews, but the Australians really getting behind you. What does it mean? It's the first time that the PR3 Mixed Double Sculls has been here at a World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals.
Oh, this is amazing. This is the first time max disability has been included in World Rowing. So to win this was like really special.
Mark, what does it mean to you?
It means a lot, and to do with Phoebe, who I rowed with before, yeah, she's very good. Yeah.
Amazing, guys. I'm going to let you go to your supporters. Go celebrate. Congratulations.
Well, what a way to start our day. We've had the last 16 for the men's solo, the last 16 for the under-19 mixed double, the last 16 for the women's solo, and then the first finals of the day. Look at this, though. That was such a turbulent start for the under-19 mixed doubles for Tunisia against the Bahamas. They had to restart the race, and then the Bahamas had a seat malfunction, had to restart the race again at the end of that block. But it's been a great race overall. No outcomes adjusted because, or changed because of some of those technical issues. I think it's followed pretty much the form book through the full course of the day. Look at that Fikra hammering his way around the turning point. Such an exciting start to the day and an absolutely jam-packed set of athletes in the men's solo that we can look forward to later on this afternoon. The men's solo taking place later on at 4 o'clock local time here in Barletta, Italy. This, of course, is the women's solo. And look at that for the PR3 mixed doubles. Almost a photo finish to the line. Now, we've got a break for lunchtime. And we're going to be back in just about an hour, just under an hour, where we get underway with the first set of our quarterfinals, where we can enjoy the quarterfinals for the under-19 men's double from 1 o'clock local time here. We'll be back with you just before that, and we're going to grab some lunch and look forward to taking you through the quarterfinals from 1 o'clock for the under-19 men's double.